Once again, my name is Daniel Gies. I'm the creative and technical director at e.d.Films. I've got a little bit of a different setup happening here, just because I've updated one of my computers, and I'm just doing a really short stream here, just as I have a little bit of time, and I'll pop back on this evening. So before I finish rigging up the cyclist, which I was working on before, I have to put this background together for the forest that the character rides through. So I'm just going to quickly show you the painting. And I just have make sure you can see the chat thread here. There we go. Okay. So I'm building the set right now. I've already laid in the camera and just one piece. Oh, this is the set here. So I've got a whole bunch of fog layers. I probably should have gotten rid of that, but too late. A whole bunch of trees, a bunch of grass and ferns and all that kind of stuff. So these are my close-up trees. I've got them all separated. There's a lot of stuff going on in this composition. This is a really dense environment painting. Doesn't look really good right now, but it'll look good later. There's a lot of texture and painterliness going on in here. Okay, so this is what we'll be putting together. Let's close that out. I guess I'll try to save it. We'll see if that might cause a problem. It's a pretty big file. The actual composition is 12,000 pixels by about 5,000, so it's pretty large. So hop into After Effects here. So I've got the animatic in the top corner here. As you can see, he's riding his bike. It's actually reversed. It's flipped backwards. The scene will have to be flipped later. But we're going to, because of the way the painting was configured, I don't want to have to flip every layer of the painting, so I'm just going to flip the animation in the end. So we moved up and along this thing here, and here we go. Great. Something's happening. I think it's because it's updating the file that I saved. Just take a beat here. There we go. Okay. Let's get started. So, come on. What are you doing? Find sometimes with this particular tablet, the Cintiq here, sometimes the mouse doesn't let go properly and then it gets stuck dragging back and forth, and I have to use a second mouse to actually release it. It's really strange. Okay, so I've already started, laid in the basic background. Here, I'll show you what's going on here. I took this one ground plane, this one right here, down here, and it's actually the full ground plane, but I actually masked off some of it. So you can see here, this is the ground piece, and then in this one, I've just masked the top off, and I feathered it. So I could make a duplicate, and so I could rotate it towards the camera so that we can get a little bit of a parallax happening that the bike can run along, and that means I can do a nice shadow that's coming from the back of the trees later on. This will be a fairly dynamic set. There's going to be lots going on with the trees and the lighting. So originally we had planned on having water and stuff like that, but we felt overall it was just going to be too much extra work for the brevity of the actual shot, for things to actually look that good. I think I'm just double checking my camera. I'm using a webcam instead of the other camera I was using, so I think it's flickering light and dark a little bit. So I'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully it's not too rotten. It's a little bit, it's not working super well, but that's all right. So anyways, I'll try to keep moving here. Sorry, guys. All right, here we go. So we'll just pan through here. Let's add the next thing. I could probably bring this down to a quarter resolution because the actual composition here is a full HD composition at 24 frames per second. I'm just doing it at 24 for now. The actual output will be at 23,976, but that's not 100%. Doesn't have to be, it's animation, so we don't have a soundtrack we're actually working to, so it doesn't matter if we kind of mess around a little bit. Okay, so we've got these bushes. They're somewhere in the foreground. Let's have a look at which ones these are. So these are some of my foreground elements. Now these ones aren't quite designed to be used over and over again. Like I didn't normally when I design something to be templated or to be used, I actually create a little island out of it. These are a bit more specific to the pan. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that's going to work for us or against us. It's a little bit risky. Let's pull these closer to the camera. Because cameras have a parallax, when you design a scene in Photoshop, it's never going to move quite the way you think. Your foreground layers will move very quickly past the camera and your background layers will move very slow. So you tend to have a lot less coverage on your foreground layers. So you have to make a lot more of them. Now, whether this is going to be a problem or not, I'm not quite sure. I may have to do a couple of things to tweak it, which I thought would be fine because the idea here is to show the real process and not necessarily show always be an ideal process. So to get this actual bush layer to match up to the movement of the camera, it has to be this big. So it's at 110% and its position is at negative, we'll do 1700. Or is it more than that? No, negative 1700. And that'll give us the general layout that fits with the camera move. It's still a touch small. Let's make sure here. Oh, actually, it's because it's way over there. This process can be really, really slow, I find. Like just building a scene, compositing it, getting it all together, getting everything to mesh nicely and look good can be very, very time consuming. So it's not something I stream that often. I've done a couple. I'm always hesitant to do this because it is so slow and I feel like it would be hard to watch. Okay. It's really funny how much you lose in the depth, like how much the painting is. So if you look at the actual layer, so this thing's save. It's saving a little bit slow at the moment because I have it running off a network, off a different hard drive. So I'm probably going to have to move it all to a local drive. This is just really slow. Okay, so you can see this is the this is the original layer, and we're just grazing along the surface of it, and we'll lose even more of that as we expand on the painting and build the scene out. So I'm just tipping it forward. That'll just help with our parallax. So I've got even more bushes. Now, what is this guy? Oh, I forgot to name that one. That one is supposed to be tied with one of these tree sets here. No big trees. This is foliage, so I'm not sure where this foliage goes. Oops. It goes with one of these tree sets, probably this one here. Yeah, it's this one, and then this is the back of it. So BG, this is, just copy and paste this new name and put it to front of our NT. There we go. Sorry, kind of jumping all over the place. This is how it goes. All right. So I think I'm going to have to really work this set quite a bit to make this feel right. Because I do want it to feel like a very deep and living space. But I feel like my pieces are going to be, I'm just going to have to break up my pieces. They're just too close to the camera for me to be able to get the depth I want out of them. So I'm going to have to scale them down a bit and try to work around them to get the amount that I want to get in the frame. That's also why I usually try not to do too much lighting embedded in the painting, which I've done in this one, which forests are tricky because the trees cast light like it's a backlit forest. So it's going to be casting the long shadows of trees along the whole surface. Now the thing you can't do in After Effects, you don't have curved surfaces. So when you actually cast shadows onto background pieces or onto like plants and trees, they tend just to look really straight and flat and they need to have form to them. So you can't use the shadows that are actually coming out of the lighting engine. So I guess I should scale this up. You guys can't really see what's going on. All right, so that's our first. We have 2 layers going now. Well, just a couple. We've got more bushes here. I'm going to start with all the bushes and then I'll start putting trees in. Now, I didn't separate all the trees out. I usually separate my trees a lot. Okay, so these are some of my dark foreground bushes. We'll scale this down. But you'll see I did the trees almost as just layers full of trees. I might have to manually mask them out. I just didn't want to go through the process of individually naming and masking every single one of them. It can take a long time. Now, when you rotate layers like this, you have to be careful with your fog. Like if you're going to use a fog, which I usually use a lot of fog and stuff like that, it will intersect with the layers. So you got to be careful with that. And in truth, I've probably made too many layers. It's always good to have lots to work with, but also you do end up throwing a lot away. And there's shadows on these actually. These shadows are supposed to correspond with trees. So I will have to line this up with some of the trees. Because otherwise it looks a little weird. I might want to bring those down a little bit. The nice thing about this is if I have embedded shadows already in there, one thing I can do with them is just make sure I put trees where those shadows are, which is never a bad thing. So I might crop that little blurred edge off. We're losing a lot of stuff down here. I just don't want this middle to be so obscured. Let's try to move this over a bit. I really love doing backgrounds. It's one of my favorite things, but it's definitely it's a really back and forth process. That's why I set my cameras up first, because you never know what you're going to get unless the camera's moving. See if we can. Oh no, it's doing an autosave again. I really have to change where this is autosaving because it's taking a really long time. It's a very slow autosave. It's probably writing it to, let's just go to the preferences here. Autosave. Where is it putting that? I'm just going to put a folder here. I have a project folder because I'm working off another computer, which it doesn't matter once the assets are loaded because they're all sitting in memory in the RAM. Oh, it's right there. Well, we'll just make sure it's should be fine. And then I also want to double check my memory, not memory, sorry, my cache drives, media and disk cache. Okay. So I like to change these and make sure they're on a solid state drive that doesn't have anything to do with the actual system drive. So this conformed media cache, it's a little bit problematic that it'd be sitting there. So I'm going to make a new folder. These are just all things that can slow your stuff down a bit. Okay. So we'll put it in here, select folder. Just move it all. Hopefully it's not too huge. We'll put this in the same place. There. That should be good. Maybe we'll see if that saves a bit faster. Now, I also want to make sure that I have enough parallax to make it worth all the trouble for the layer. So this one's at negative 1750, so I might want to bring it back a little bit more because it's not moving much. Oh. Let's have a look here. So let's do some more. So these are the trees that are some of the trees that are casting shadows on this little section here. But we'll figure out these guys right here. So I'm going to put them in. I'm just going to group these together. So I've grouped them together and I've just put some space on between them so that the foreground and the background foliage layers have some depth, and that will give the trees a little more volume. I'm not going so far in this particular project or scene to like make all the trees waving in the wind, which I usually do, but it's quite intensive and it requires a lot of independent tree layers. And then, you know, you can really easily attach a whole bunch of code to them and stuff, which is awesome. But, okay, it looks like we have, that's fine. I mean, I might just crop this in a little bit here so we don't have so much extra sitting outside. Okay. This makes it a little bit easier to manage. All right, now let's just have a look and line these guys up. Okay. Now this seems, okay, that's fine. All right, so let's move these trees over. I'll probably use a bunch of their layers over again. So it's bushes C that it's associated with. So I want to make sure these are -1. Let's do -1600 on this. There we go. Okay, and I might actually take this foliage, I'll rotate it down so much. So I'm going to straighten it up a little bit, just until I can get the trees in the right spot, and then I'll move it back again. So we'll do 360 for now, and then let's get these trees where they need to be. I got to check the scale too. What do we have? The scale is at 84. Make sure those scale down as well. I should have just done this as a group all together. I don't know why I didn't. Okay. It's just Emily letting me know she's headed back here soon, so that means I have a little bit of time left before we have to do anything, before I have to stop. So once again, the mouse has locked on the tablet. Okay, we'll put this to 0. Sorry, I've wasted a bit of time here by putting the trees in, not pairing the trees with this properly. So there we go. I'm just making sure these shadows line up. There they are. I think that's it. Cool. All right. So let's go -1500. All right. So I won't be able to angle it the same way I was before. I can't quite use this just as a separate piece, but it's there, it's working. So let's go -1400 on this. Yep. Cool. Okay. Let's go into the camera. Things are going to look really bad for now. Oops. Let's just lock all this stuff for now. So usually what I do is I have everything that's built very much like an island where there's up and down edges on both sides, and this makes it so that I have the maximum ability to use assets and move them around. When things are more like this, it becomes really difficult to use the layers because you're kind of stuck with what you've got, and that's not always ideal. Like in this case, it's a little bit hard to work with because we have so much. The composition is designed for a very long pan, and not all the assets are going to line up really nicely. Man, this autosave is so low. I'll have to figure that out for the next stream. Maybe I'll just turn down the frequency of autosaves. Oh my goodness, it's happening a lot. Okay, let's just change the frequency of autosaves. Save every, we'll do 10 minutes. Okay. Great, lots of stuff going on here. Let's just have a look at the front view. I want to see what I'm dealing with here. So this one goes from a cool color. So the idea for this scene was to start more in the cool shades, and then as we move closer up the hill, we get warmer and warmer. Cool hues, not shades, sorry. Okay, and that one is designed just to drop off a little bit. But you can see I'm losing a lot of use of the trees, which I could probably just reuse them because I'm really not getting the tops or anything in there. Just because of the way the composition is designed, I could always bring them down a little bit. But I want to be careful with that and not block out the rider too much. Oops. Okay. So let's bring these bushes up a little bit more. There we go. Now I have to be careful because I'm going to really obscure the hill that the rider's on with all this foreground stuff going on. I'm going to try to position it so there's a lot of nice stuff going on in the foreground, but it's not completely blotting out what we want to see, which is the rider. And I'll probably have to bring the ground up a little bit too. Let's pair these guys together in color. Orange, okay. And bring this up. It's very much a massaging process, this kind of thing. Just back and forth and back and forth. And let's make sure that this is identified. So we have these three trees. I'm going to put all this together as one color just so that I know they're all part of the same thing. I think I might bring the scale down a bit and see what I can do about moving this over and up. I want to get a lot of depth in the forest without losing, and like I want the trees to have scale, but I don't want them to be so tall that they're completely out of the frame the whole time, because that's what the really close-up trees are designed for. So we may have these little pockets. I may be able to rebuild the scene in a way that takes advantage of the little pockets of light and dark. As long as they correspond well with the shadows of the trees, then it's okay. But this is very much what the process is of resculpting a scene based on, I mean, I never, like I think I've said a million times before, I don't usually plan on using my Photoshop file exactly based off what I've made. I'm using it more as a whole pile of pieces. So even with a painting like this, the painting really doesn't hold up very well when it actually comes down to it. Okay, so let's try this. And they've got all the big trees, and they've got like a ton of foreground, not a ton, but a few foreground layers, which I can either use or not use. The nice thing about this stuff is I usually paint stuff in such a style that if I don't use them in this project, I'll probably use them in something else. Okay, so this is a really warm piece, so this will probably want to come up here. And I probably won't put it so close to the camera. Let's use this one more in one of these, push it right against here. There we go. So we'll let it be warm right to the edges there. Great. So what's nice about this is I can reuse this piece, because I barely used it. And bring it down over here. Now it has this nice purple. I'll be able to, I'll also be able to, with this, push the color if I want to, with lights and stuff like that, or with, you know, because right now we have this big bright orange spot, which I can neutralize, or Like this foreground piece is really too warm for where it is in the scene, especially if we want to go gradually from cools to warm. So we can either do it with lighting, we can do it with a tint. So sometimes I use just tritone. So I'll just show you. Go here, and we go color correction. I use tritone just because it's the most, I think, easy for me to wrap my head around as far as what to expect. So I'm pushing this into the, well, let's just push this into kind of these mid greens. So kind of cool. This is a warm green, but we can cool it off a little bit. Like that's way too green. So we're gonna go for more grays. It's really too blue. Let's see if we can get something in the region more there. Okay. I don't know, it looks hideous at the moment, but we'll bring it together. At least we'll try anyway. Might have to stay really cool with all the lighting and really desaturate it. We'll see. We'll play with it. And these darks, I mean, the blacks should technically just remain black, but sometimes it's nice to bring some color and saturation into them. So it just depends on how it's sitting in this comp. So this one, the darks are sort of sitting in the greenish area, green purples, and maybe we'll just try to match it to this palette here. A bit of a mid. I want it darker anyway, because I want it to sit sort of closer to the camera. So let's bring it darker, and I mean, can either go cooler or warmer. Okay. I'll just tone this down. Oops. And I don't like my highlight color at all. It's awful. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna play with it. It's still super ugly, but it's still like you can see that it's knocked that way down. Like it used to be like that, which I mean I still like that, but I just have to figure out if it's in the right. It might just be overkill for that spot. So as you can see, we'll gradually be able to sculpt this set, and then once from there we can then start lighting it. But I would prefer more if the colors were in this range, which is probably what I should have looked at. I don't know what I was thinking. And down there. There we go. Let's just bring this up. It's a little bit better. We can probably push this dark down a little more. There. Cool. Bring it forward just a bit more. And down just a touch. I like what's going on in these splashes of color in here, so I don't want to lose them too much. It's more the stuff I don't like is more over here. I don't like that weird gray color that's happening in front of the trees. That part's not working at all. And this weird washed out thing. It worked okay in the painting, but it's definitely not working right now. I think that layer is this one. You can see it looks okay on its own, but it's not. This is too washed out. So I may actually just, let's just have a look where it goes to. It goes to there. I may just tip it and bring it down. Just actually end up hiding that layer. We don't really need it. And then, so you can see how much of the painting we just lose, hey? So much of it. Yeah, might scale that down too and push it. It's pretty ugly. And this is really cool for this spot. So this one here, probably have to do a tint on that one as well. I won't stream this whole process because, like I was saying, it's pretty boring to watch. Um, it's more just I think I'll just this is literally the process. So it doesn't really do much more after this. It's just the same thing over and over again. And things look really quite horrible for quite a while until I'm able to start getting into um, lighting and stuff like that. Things look really bad. Okay, so this will warm that up a little bit, but this is ultimately too dark. I mean, I could bring the lightness up with the tint, or I could just do a curve on it. I usually try to use the most basic tools before I start getting into really nuanced stuff, because it's just can be a little bit harder to control. But this layer is pretty dark. Oh geez, there goes the autosave. It's been 10 minutes. Come on. I could also just push that to a warmer green. Like right now it's really yellow. Might be better just to push it into the greens. One way of doing that is the tint, or this will unify the colors, and then I can do like a this if I want and push it towards more greens. So nice and easy. And then do my curves. So again, it's really always for me, it's about the simplest tools I can possibly use to make something happen. So you see, we got the greens out of it. It looks pretty good. It's a bit acidic. So I might tone down the saturation just a touch. But a lot of this stuff will be fixed up in color correction anyway. Just lots of building to do. It also may not be quite the right piece to use there. So that's another thing that happens a lot is I'll go back and forth and add pieces, take them away, put them back, put in new pieces. Because we have this one here. Which I'm not loving this one. I feel like this one here is pretty hideous at the moment. Not liking it. That's Bush's E. It's down here. I just hate, there's things I hate about it. I really like a lot of stuff about it on its own. Like by itself, I think it's a really nice layer. But I think within the composition, it's not working. But let's try just to pull the curves down a bit on it. See if we can't just get a little more life out of it. And it might just be too large. Oops. We'll push the contrast a bit, which works nice down here, but it may not work so well up here. This could get really oversaturated, which it's doing a little bit. I mean, technically, I could also just go in and repaint some of it, but I do want to avoid that as much as I can. So that's just a whole lot of extra work. All right, where are we? Okay, this layer is there. I like what it's doing with this dark, with the tree. It's creating this little pocket of light and dark in front of the tree. I like that. Actually, I like that little rock there. That's cool. Let's see, though, if it just turns into rottenness as we come up. No, it's all right. So maybe this is at negative 915. I'm also usually start reorganizing the layers as I move through, just because it helps me know where I am, like which layer is what. So this is negative 915, this is negative 960. And so as things are getting closer to the camera, I will start ordering them so that they're appropriate. Now this is too green now, and possibly too desaturated. Maybe we can take the amount of the tint down a bit. Where does that live? It lives there. That's if it's all off. Okay. I don't really want to boost saturation because that kind of looks horrible. However, let's see about this. That doesn't look horrible. It's not my favorite in the world. Let's just see what it looks like without any effects. But it does feel like it needs to be roughly in that space of lighting. Okay, and maybe we'll just rotate it down a bit more. I like the cools and the purples of it, but they may be in the wrong spot. maybe I'll just bring this down and we'll use just a different piece closer up here. Let's see if we can make this nestle in a bit better. Don't want to lose that nice rock, but we are now losing that quality of the dark. See how tricky it is? It can kind of just, it's gonna just explode and go forever. Oh, hey Spunrita. Thanks. I'm glad I'm glad you're enjoying seeing the process. Um, I guess if you're working on something while you watch this, it's not so bad. Like I do watch some streams that I just sort of while I'm working, it's just I don't watch it intimately, but I do listen. So I guess that's that can be a good way to watch something that can be a bit tedious. Mhm. I think the contrast on this one is just a little bit too high. It's just a bit too dark. It's crushing and not blending nice. So a lot like painting, when you're compositing, it is about your lights and darks and proximity of values. So if you make something like really harsh, it creates a hard edge. And in painting, you have what's like hard and soft edges. And hard and soft edges can be achieved by actually like hard brushstrokes with heavy paint or like a harsh line. Or you can use really harsh lines but have really close values or close colors. Usually values, because values are where you get the most. I mean, it's where your contrast comes from. So if you squint your eyes, like I'll often squint my eyes and look at this and just make sure that I'm not getting too much contrast. And something that can happen too is if the scene can really feel super busy because there's too much contrast and it's not consistent enough, which can easily happen if you're using a lot of pieces. So there's a trick I was taught. I don't remember where I saw it. I think I saw it on a tutorial or something that somebody does. Like instead of just blurring with their eyes, they go like this and they just use a blur filter. And that can be a nice trick to see, because usually what you do when you're painting in plain air is you'll blur your eyes and make everything fuzzy, and that makes helps you see the values a little more and see if you're losing your values and you're losing your structures, like because you want things to be in masses, not you don't want a big bunch of chaos. And you can see in here we have clumps of light and dark, which I think is probably still too erratic, but that will be cleaned up as we start building atmosphere and things into it. So this little effect can be handy just to give you a little to get you away from just seeing everything super clear. So you see, and what we can also see with this too is the transition in value, or sorry, in hue. So we go from a cool palette to a notably warmer one, and I want to make sure we maintain that transition. Okay, so moving along. Let's do more. I'm not going to get into the big trees just yet, because the big trees, I'm really excited about the big trees. It's funny, I made all this stuff and I'll probably use 25% of it, which is you know kind of horrible. Okay, this is really warm, which is great. So that means I can use this one up here, and there's some nice details in it too. So this was designed to be a really close-up piece. But look at it. I think it's there. It's so big. So what I'll probably do with this is I'll cut it. I'd always intended to cut this one in the middle anyway. That's why I made it. So this is more akin, this is more like how I would do a piece. This one I had fully intended to chop in half like this. And you can see it's like two little islands. And when things are these little islands, they're easier to use like little pieces. So when I used to build train sets, when you made little rocks and pieces, you always made little islands, and the islands can then, be configured more easily. Okay, so we're just gonna make a soft edge here. There we go. Not that we'll see that. We probably shouldn't see it, but I just want to be safe just in case we accidentally do. That's another thing that happens to me sometimes is I'll put something together, and if your scenes are really big and there's a lot going on, that's I really try to avoid having hard edges. Things like that. Like if you have something like this, it's all well and good. Like this edge here, that's like you have the island, and it's fine to a degree, but something can happen is if you have like a plant layer like that, and you think in this composition, you're like, oh, it looks fine, but then you render it, and you see there's just this tiny little edge that appears here and there. That can really wreck the illusion, and that's something that I try to watch for, and I try to mitigate as much as possible just by um, having relatively clean edges on stuff or textured edges so that the edges of my composition aren't hard. This one I didn't do such a good job on that. Mostly, has it been 10 minutes already? Mostly because I was painting it as one big painting. And it was one of the first ones I did for this project, and I hadn't really strategized how I was going to do the compositing. It's more like how I would get a painting from a painter, and then I would have to try to figure out how to work with it. Oh, it looks I spelled bushes properly, it seems. Okay, so let's go bushes A, and this will be bushes A02. And for this one, I'm going to just take the mask and change it. Probably, oops, put it over here. This one is already faded off on the edges, which is good. Let's bring this up. And I might just get rid of the little green guys because those stand out a little bit, and I don't want to. Um, I guess like when you're making something that's supposed to be used a lot, you have to be really careful about making things with unique details. Oh, okay. Looks like I'm gonna have to stop the stream, but I will be back on again this evening. Um, so thank you for hanging out. I'll see you this evening. Okay, hello. My name is Daniel Guys. I am the creative and technical director at e.d.Films. I'm just doing yet another unofficial Twitch stream at the most ridiculous hours of the evening. Earlier today, I was streaming and I was working on this background piece that is for a specific shot in the Let There Be Light film, which we have a big screening of coming up here. So I need to wrap this scene up for it's for hot dogs in Toronto. So I've got to wrap this scene up. We've been screening it. It's screened in South by Southwest and a few other places without these two scenes in it. So there's an opening scene and then there's this train scene, which we're both missing. I finished the train scene and now I just have to wrap up this bicycle scene. I haven't finished the puppet. I rigged the bike and I rigged that on Twitch, so there's a stream of that. But right now I have to put the background together before I really settle on the animation because it really depends on the topology of the ground. So I'm going to continue developing this background and putting it together, and I just thought I would stream while I actually went through and built this because it's it's actually it's quite a process. So I've done a couple of background building streams on Twitch so far, but this one's pretty elaborate because there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of depth. It's a forest, and I find forests can be pretty tricky, especially when the camera's moving. There's a lot going on, and it's really hard to balance a busy scene, like keeping it from being too busy, um, but giving that sense of density. So we're gonna work through it. I'm just gonna keep building it, and if anyone is watching and has questions, they can ask me. But it's a bit tedious. It's not that exciting. There's not going to be any big revelations here. I'm just going to build it. It's supposed to be in BC, and BC has these ginormous trees. It's in Bowen Island, so it's a really these. So I painted all these big trees, and the set isn't actually done like how I would normally do one, which is usually I make everything like little islands, like they're little hills and they have edges on them. So I have a pretty good example, right? I talked about this in the last stream, so it may be redundant. But things like this here, I make these little islands, and I don't know why I can't I pan over. So these little islands I can reuse and position all over the place. But for for this scene, I'd painted a lot of it in single passes. So let's just find one of the layers here. It's a little different than I would normally do things. Even the ground here, it's just one big huge layer, and I don't usually work that way. So this is just one giant layer, and then I have all these bushes layers, like these things here. So these are essentially designed as one giant layer, and they're harder to work with because I don't have these terminating edges on them where they can come down and I can reposition them. So I'm having to put those in manually because when I actually painted it, I was treating it as one giant composition, and it's not actually going to work that way because the shot just changes everything. That's the thing I struggle with in compositing for animated film is the way I paint a background. I typically paint it like I'm going to use like a train set. You know, like there's going to be all these little pieces. I'm going to put it together, and that's typically how I have to do it because my paintings don't look super good all like as a standalone image. So what I'm doing now, like, so just to finish on that point, actually, is that a painting looks good as a painting, but once you have a tracking shot and everything's moving, and I've been gone over this before, but all those videos are gone, so I'm reiterating. Um, Once the camera is tracking, the whole scene changes every few frames. Like the whole feeling of the shot changes. This is not one painting. This is a painting. This is another painting. This is another one here. So there's a sense of constant transition. So it's really hard for you to decide. You can't just lay it all out as one piece because it's a tracking shot. Now it's a bit different if you have a dolly or a truck. I think it's called a truck shot where you're coming into the frame. That's a little bit different because you can take a composition that is fairly sound and just move the camera in, and there's only a slight change. But for a long tracking shot, everything is changing the whole time. So it's really hard to predict how the painting will feel once it's all moving. So that is that's where we're at. So now what I'm doing is I'm trying to build the scale that I want using all of the assets I've created. So I made a whole bunch of these trees that I painted in Photoshop. They look pixelated only because I'm really working at a pretty low resolution. I'm at 1/4. This project's actually it's 4K, so it's pretty unruly to work with. Like, so right now in this stage, I typically work at 1/4 resolution. Otherwise, I would never see a single frame render. And I tend to actually work pretty small. Like I look at things at this size of the screen. So um, I don't know why. I mean, you would assume that I'd be more in like this, but I tend to be back here, which is probably not great for learning, but it tends to be where I end up living. Okay, so that being said, right now I'm just trying to populate the frame. So what I predict is going to happen is that I'll put in a whole bunch of stuff, and inevitably it'll be too much. I'll end up using too much stuff. So I tend to overpaint everything. And it looks like it's having trouble letting go of a frame here. So anyways, if this may be a very long and boring process, but I thought I might as well stream it while I'm doing it. And I was just purging the memory here, and it seems to be hung up on it. Let's give it a second to work through it all. Wow, this is okay. That was very time consuming, and it still hasn't found. It's coming back. It's because I went and bumped it up to full res. So I assaulted the computer. Here it is trying to figure it all out. One of the difficulties is with this is that the actual composition, because it's a long tracking shot, it's 12,000 pixels across. It's a monstrous painting. Come on, let go. Okay, there we go. We should be almost settled. I don't know what is happening here. Come on, let go. There we go. Okay. There's this thing that seems to happen, and I had it in the last video too, where the Cintiq will lose track of what it's doing and see if my fingers off this and I'm just pulling my mouse back and forth and it's like it's gotten stuck on a click and it doesn't let go. See, it's done it again. It's done it every single time here. Anyways, it's one of those weird things. Okay, so let's grab a tree. It only happens when I'm pulling the timeline around. It's really weird. Okay, so I'm just going to grab more trees. This is a ginormous tree. So these are meant to be foreground trees, but the thing I was finding is when they're really close to the foreground, you don't get a sense of their scale. So these are them quite close. Like I definitely will have one pretty close to the front, but I found they don't scale real nice. Like they don't, I painted them so they would look good close, but you just don't get much of a sense of it. Just like a big green wall, which is fine, but I don't want to be blocking the frame with all these giant trees the whole time. So for the first moment of the frame, it's totally fine, but I don't think it works well. Um, I don't want to do that too many times because you're really blocking all the action. And I thought it would look better, but it doesn't. So what I'm thinking is we start the shot with a tree right in the front, maybe just a little touch this way, and then we'll block in and we'll do this. And then the rest of the big trees, they're going to feel the biggest if they're further back, I think. So there's a couple here that I have coming in, which I may keep or take out because that's a big, like this is blocking 15% of the screen for a pretty long, slow camera movement. So I may move those trees. I really like them. I'm really happy with how they turned out. I used these brushes that I got online. I'm having trouble remembering the guy's name, but it made my tree painting super fast. Like the edges are the brushes that I've made, but the bark on them, oh, I can't remember his name. It's Aaron Blay, Blais, Aaron Blay, and he's used to be a Disney animator, and he has a whole bunch of great tutorials online. And I grabbed a bunch of his brushes when I started this project because I just had so much work to do on the trees and a lot of forest. You can see it's actually really helping those trees look a lot bigger when they're further back. So I'm kind of thinking this will make a really cool giant forest feeling. I guess it's part of what's neat about this process is I wasn't planning on those trees being far background trees. I thought of them more as close-up trees, as you can see by the coloring on them. But then the neat thing about it is I'll be able to push the colors wherever I need them to be. So that's why I tend to draw things pretty flat, like make the lighting pretty flat. Like this is lighting that's directed on one side or the other, but I don't. Aaron Blay, yeah, Spunrita, thank you. Yes, Aaron Blay, that's the guy. Um, Great brushes. His brushes were awesome. I really liked them. Actually, I think I'm gonna open up Photoshop really quick while I'm doing this, but I found his brushes were really good. They were really great. Um, I'm not the biggest. I'm not really super into his style because it's a really realistic, and I tend to go for less realistic because I think I'm not a really competent anatomical illustrator, so I tend to I like things that are a little bit more abstract. I used some of his brushes on this little Bambi guy, but I'm just gonna go. There's a particular series of brushes. I also I also recently grabbed this plugin, which I don't know why it's not showing up all of a sudden, but oh, it's not here. I just grabbed a plugin helps arrange my brushes because I've got a lot of brushes, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It's pretty new. I'll show it in another because it's on the other computer. But there's a whole bunch of brushes that I used on my trees and stuff, which are really good. And they're down here. I don't really like the way Photoshop organizes brushes, but these like bark brushes were super good once you get them on a tree form, it's pretty easy to paint something. So like, let's just say I'll just make a thing. And actually, I used these brushes here, which are great for creating tree trunks. So you put them to 100%. Oh, yeah, Spun Rita, you have the cloud brushes? Yeah, I used the cloud brushes on this project. And that's how I got like I would say I got some of the best clouds I've ever made. I'm really happy with actually how the brushes turned out. So it's super easy to paint a tree with these brushes. I also have a brush set that I got which I really liked, and it's the Kyle T. Webster brushes. I don't know if I found them on Tumblr totally by accident, and I really like them. I mean, this isn't gonna make you a great tree painter. I mean, I grew up in a forest, so and I spent a lot of my childhood painting trees. I love trees, so I'm it doesn't make you the best tree painter, but it does help. Like these, I like this brush because it creates a nice rough edge, and then you can go back in and clean them up. But so normally when I do something like this, I'll create a form, and then I'll create a little thing like this, block it in, and put a solid color layer or something, you know. And I can see too when I've done this, I see there's a little bit of a transparency on this edge of this tree here, which is okay. It doesn't really matter. But then what I can do is I usually go for something in the mid-tone, and then some people paint in color. It depends on how I'm feeling, whether I paint in color or not. Sometimes I paint in color, sometimes I don't. And I really found these bark brushes were really, really helpful. So let's just take this and where's my extensions? I don't know why this one got turned off. It's probably because I have another computer running. I just upgraded one of my computers, so a lot of my little plugins and stuff are in this weird space where they oh, there's a new version. Well, that's nice. Okay, well, I won't get into this at the moment. This isn't supposed to be a painting tutorial anyway. It's not even supposed to be a tutorial. But anyways, these brushes here, so we'll take the flow down. Just paint a bark really fast. So I'm just imagining the sunlight on one side of this thing here. So see how quick, and I'm gonna just like getting a nice texture, and then I can take this, let me just push like a kind of a bluish dark color. It's pretty much how I did it. So this is my dark side, so I'm kind of imagining that the sunlight's on stage left essentially. It's pretty fast, hey? And then I can go nice and dark down here. And then think of my ambient light, which would be a bit of bounce light of green coming in. And then on the far side, I might go for like a lighter bluish color for say the color of the sky coming in, hitting the side of the tree, which is probably too blue. It should actually be more gray. Anyways, I found these brushes super great. Like I really enjoyed them. Like that's pretty good. Like how fast you can get a tree going, like a trunk going, and with the bark and everything. And then so when I take that and I mix it with the Kyle T. Webster, I've got all like a whole bunch of his brushes. There's tons of stuff. I really like them, and they've really helped me. I've got his concept brushes, which were super good. They were really helpful. I make most of my own brushes, but these just made it a little bit easier, especially for this specific project where I needed to create a lot of content quickly. But then he has this one, which is the spatter brushes, which I really like, and I was using them on my trees and stuff. So I'm trying to remember the one I really like is like spatter punk maybe. You drop the flow down, and you come in and just use some like really cool colors. Like I tend to, try like, especially if I'm doing forests, like where there's lots of green and stuff, I'll use kind of like pinks and stuff like that and kind of throw that in. And then, you know, I wasn't intending on going into painting, but I just, Spenrita, you kind of got me excited about, I really have been having fun with these brushes. And the spatter brushes are really great too because they add that element of you know hand painted concept a little bit, which I've really love. Anyway, so you'll see. So that's a bit of the process. I mean, it looks awful. The colors aren't really nice. Could be richer. Um, but you see, so those brushes are actually really nice, and they have a pretty decent resolution. So when you're nice and close, you should have a lot of texture there. And then you can go in and use like um, any brush you want, like a detail brush of some kind. I've been using this pencil soft from the Kelty Webster, which I really like too. And then coming back in, and then you can do some of your detailing. Like go in and just add some detail here and there if you really need to. Which I haven't done much on this project because there just hasn't been much time. But then I'll usually go back in and add some little highlights and lowlights and stuff like that. And I also have some really good the Kyle's concept brushes. He has some good like crackly brushes and stuff. There's one here on the concept brushes. There's actually like too many. I would recommend taking any of this stuff and kind of bringing it down a little bit. But there's some good crackle brushes like this, and this one just needs to be orientated a little differently. You can go through and then add some cool, nice darkness and stuff, and add some, you know, and then erase. Anyways, I won't get all into this stuff, but that's essentially the process. And those are the brushes I've been using, and you'll see in the actual, when you're looking close at these compositions, you'll see a lot of that stuff going on. There's lots of little spatter brushes and lots of different colors going in here. Yeah, so it's actually really fun. I'm just gonna see if I can get this to go away. I'm having trouble reading all the comments because it's not fitting on this one screen. Let's just put this over here. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, Spunner is just saying that they wanted to see how I painted the trees. Yeah, that's how I painted most of them. It's pretty simple. Also, I shouldn't have closed the thing, but I did. I used like a really along the edges. Um, I have a whole bunch of little foliage brushes that I've made, and then I just run along the edges to create my mosses and stuff like that. So it's very similar. It's like creating like an alpha um, a folder with an alpha channel. So I paint the silhouettes first, really solid, and then inside that container I do all the painting. It's actually really fun, and it tends to look pretty neat. Actually, I'm going to open this one more time, and I'll show you something since you're asking. And there's only like 3 people here, so who cares, right? Just jump around. I'll just show you. I'll see if I can open it. I should be able to open those. I'll open the non-flattened version. Um, It'll take a while to open because it's really huge. We'll do, I think it's flatter. It's probably the one we want. I'll let that open. It's a pretty massive file, so, well, it's like 1.5 gig. It's flattened a little bit. Oh, this sometimes happens to me. I don't know why that happens. Okay, so I'll let that open. Go back here. Okay, it's coming. I'll just show you what it looks like underneath the masks. Hopefully, if this isn't too flattened. Are there any? No, there's no non-flattened layers in there, so that's really quite flat. Let's open this one. So I need to open one of the huge ones. So these files, I don't know if you've run into this before, but in Photoshop, if you get over two gigs, you have to use a PSB file. I didn't know that for a long time. And my file would get big, and then all of a sudden it'd be truncated, and I'd be freaking out. And essentially, all you have to do is save it as a PSB. It's just like a Photoshop big file. I don't know if that's actually what it means, but that's what I kind of take it as. All right, so let's gonna keep putting these trees in. Now these trees are over dark for what they are, so they'll have to be manipulated. I'm also keeping in mind in this scene the sun's coming from stage right. And again, I'm probably going to overfill it. I always do it. I always overfill. I think like as you get to be really skilled, which I hope I get one day, I get to be a super master of everything of the universe, like He-Man. Um, as you get super skilled, you spend less time making things really complicated than dialing them back. I'm not at that level yet. I'm still at this point where I make everything over complicated, and then I have to spend time untangling my complications and pruning back. And I just have to accept it as that it's part of my process and not get too fussed up about it. I can scale this up because it's quite a bit far back. I want to create this really cool sense of like a big tree. So essentially, okay, here it is. Bum, bum, bum. So you can see all the pieces. It's quite a mess, but you can also see here, this computer's running a little bit slow. I think I have too many things open. It's going full screen mode. Okay, so it's not having fun. Okay, so you can see this is the some of the stuff up close up. You can see how much stuff's going on. Lots of little spatters, lots of little textures, lots of stuff going on. It's just like a big mess. This is not a painting. This is a giant mess of things. Um, and on the trees, so along the silhouette. So if I turn, I'm going to take this layer. So I use this once I get into cleaning up mode, or when I start to flatten things out. I turn on this like these gray layers. I have one like a gray color layer or neutral, some kind of neutral. And this wow, this computer's running super slow for some reason. There's something going on. Anyways, so this is what it looks like with the masks on. I'm just going to isolate one of these layers and I'll turn the mask off and you can see where my brush strokes end up. So you can see the mess that it is underneath those masks. So that helps me so I don't have to be really precise and I'm not going to spend too much time um, fussing about the boundaries. So this mask, when I turn it on, it's preserving all the forms and stuff. So then what I can do, I usually do the mask first. So when I'm painting it initially, all you really see is there's this like this. So I make sure this looks good first. It's a weird way to paint, but the reason I paint this way, I wouldn't I usually draw with pen and ink and things like that, and I don't you would never work this way. But in animation, because everything is about layers and about modularity, it's really important to have, for me anyways, a silhouette I can work with. If there's a lot of blurriness and a lot of strokes and everything going on, it can create a lot of distracting elements that are coming off of the thing that are painter. It can look painterly, but it can also get really busy and hard to see through. So for me, it's about having a strong silhouette and cleaning that, keeping that clean, and then painting inside of that. And part of creating the silhouettes is I have all these brushes, and a lot of these ones I built, these are like my own personal brushes, a whole bunch of them. But I have brushes that I go through, and I have matte brushes that I use. Like this one is one that I made, and this is for like a, you can see it's like really solid, and I can just paint on the edges like that. It's really opaque, and I can go along and add detail and make it really nice and small. I just go through and kind of build things up. And I have like these little grass brushes that I've made too. It's just that. I'm essentially just going through and I just make sure that on the brush I don't have a lot of transfer stuff going on, like where the intensity, there's no opacity from pen control and stuff like that. This is purely for an opaque layer. You can get into like really faded layers and stuff like that, which I've done before, but they tend to look good as a painting, but as soon as they move, so if you have, I'm just trying to find a good example. I did it on one project and it looks cool when you first paint it, but what happens when everything starts moving is it doesn't look good anymore. So let's say you have these bushes like this, and you're painting it up, kind of getting this like limbo style fadedness. This looks cool right here, but once this layer is moving over top of, let's say, another layer like this, it goes from looking really cool to actually just looking transparent. right? So for me, painting the strong, solid silhouette and then getting that feeling of the recession is important to do inside of the mask and not not with the semi-transparent brush strokes, which I do after the fact, like after I've built all these layers up and detailed them out. Um, this is all this stuff that I have here. These are all designed for creating like nice silhouettes. Well, this one's not. This one needs to be. This one has a um, I want to make sure the flow's up. The opacity needs to be 100%. This one's, yeah, this one's good too. So this is good too. So this is literally what I do, is I build really what I could think are nice silhouettes. And then I go through and detail them with all my little funny little brushes that I've made. These are like my own little brushes. I'm definitely going to make these brushes available to people pretty quick here. I'm trying to put together, we're trying to figure out what is the best page to put them on to make them available. I have about, I don't know, I have like so many brushes. These are all ones I made for National Geographic. But anyways, I use these brushes and then, yeah, and then you paint inside. And the cool thing is, when you're dealing with silhouettes, is that I can modify these. And because I've painted beyond the boundaries so far, if I modify a silhouette like this, I get all this like extra little details for free. Um, and I suppose since we're here, and this is turned into a painting thing, another thing I do, so I'll show you this really quickly. So that's trees. For bushes, like foreground bushes, see all this stuff going on? What I'll do with this is this the same thing. It's just like I create a nice mask first. Same stuff. So we just go here. I create a nice mask and then I literally just go in and start painting on it. But then what I do is I might have like another layer. So I have this layer here which I painted. And this is just like a really solid white shape, and then I paint this. Like I create this big solid, and I do that with, this is a mix of some of the Aaron Blay brushes. So you can see there's a bit of Aaron Blay, there's a little bit of my own brushes in there. Like I've got these like, I made these fern brushes too. I got so many brushes. I got these like pine tree brushes, like all this stuff I think people could really use. So these are my little ferns I made. And these ones, let's just go here into this mask layer. Don't paint it white. Oh, I can't see anything for some reason. Probably doing something stupid, but I don't know. Okay, so these are my little fern brushes that I made. These are for just like, that's a little other brush I made. These are like fern plants. So then I go through, so let's say I made something like that. This is supposed to be sort of ground cover, but what I can do, and this is like, this has been like, it was a bit of a discovery I made in National Geographic when I was working on the National Geographic project. I can control click this. So I've made this like nice little template. There might be a better way to do this, I don't know for sure. But I control click it. And then let's say I'm working on this layer here, this ground cover. I'm going to grab a new layer. I can take this and I can transform this selection, and I'm going to use it as a stencil. So I'll just position it in a good way. Press enter, and I'm just going to grab this brush. I use this brush a lot. It's a texture brush. I made it when I was taking a concept art course. So I put the flow way down, put it to 50%, but watch this. So I can paint here. I'm just going to paint some. It's not going to be good. I'm just painting something really fast. Bring some color in. Great. Okay. So you take a look at that, and I just made this nice little detailed thing like this, right? But now I can Control Shift I if I'm happy with it. Actually, let's just go like this. We'll deselect. Okay, let's say I did that. Great. Happy. Love it. Or maybe it needs a little touch more brightness just to give some highlights in there. Let's do a couple little. And I could use another brush too. I could use my fern brushes, but I want to use something that's a little less. I don't want it to be too identified. So that's when I kind of have a dual brush, right? So let me see if I can find it, because these ones are a mess, like because I don't have that tool I love in there. So yeah, so let's say I take this and I just put a couple of these in, and let's really boost this lightness up and warm that up a little bit. Okay, so I've got this, but now what I can do is I don't always have to just focus on highlights. What I could also do is I'll select this mask again, and I'll transform it, and let's put it to another area, and we'll make a dark patch. So let's go over here. Maybe I feel like this is a little too, it needs a bit of darkness in it, create a bit of depth. So I can go here and I'll inverse the selection. let's grab my brush up here, this Ava texture brush that I have, and I'm going to select kind of a purplish color. Cool, but I don't want it to be too, I want it to be too much saturation. I can just start painting like this. So now I'm painting outside of the layer. This doesn't look good, but you'll get the point. So now I'm painting outside. I'm painting the shadow parts, and now watch when I deselect, I've got this. So it's kind of, it gives me that nice sense of, this is like one thing I figured out to really help eliminate. What I used to do is just, I would just have like a texture and I would just paint all inside of it. So you would start with something like this and you just start painting and painting and painting. And it just was taking me so long to get detail and get this like sense of vibrancy, because the alpha channel looks so nice, but then everything inside just kind of look mushy like a texture. So that technique that I was just showing you really helps to create a richness and a density to these large things, which you really don't see much of them. But I kind of feel like these would make even, like, I would be happy if I could make a film where these are the backgrounds. You just saw like stuff like this. I think it'd be super sick. I think that would make it really nice. It's just like they're really nice. I like it. It's when you're really close up to it. But anyways, that's how I make them. It's pretty basic. It's kind of a cheat, but it works. I feel like it works really well. I did it with everything. I do it all the time. These trees, same thing. Um, and then I'm just trying to see if there's any, I don't think there's anything special. This is more of like a tree mix layer here. Let's just turn this on so we can isolate some of it. This is just a mix of the two. And then, and I painted the shadows, and they should probably be harder. But anyways, I didn't want to make my shadows too harsh because then I have to make it work. If the lighting is different, then I'm be in trouble. So there's always a risk. So and this thing, so here I've got rocks in here. Um, yeah, the inverting. So yeah, Spunnerita saying I never would have thought to invert the selection to get shadows in depth. And yeah, I did it by accident. And it just happened. I was like, whoa, this is great. It's like just an easy way to work and preserve that detail without having to go back in and trying to paint it in, which is a nightmare. Um, this is like in these spaces. So if I'm creating a rock, it's funny how this turned into a painting tutorial. I'm supposed to be compositing, but okay. So if I was creating a rock, I wouldn't normally do it after I've done so much of this stuff, but let's say I had, I'll go like this, just make a shape. And then I have a bunch of rock brushes that I made, but I usually just use this like, this is like a good rock texture brush like this. When the flow is really low, it works really well. And then I don't have my coulars working, which I really like for my color stuff, but let's put this to 50, and then I try not to like overstroke it. I want to keep some of the, I'm tapping it because of the nature of this brush. I don't want to like overwork it because then it just gets really smooth, unless that's what I want, right? So I've painted this in, bum bum bum, a little bit of highlight. And then on this side, because the light's coming from over here, I'll have like a bit of a cooler highlight. This is probably not the right kind of blue. We probably should have more of a purplish blue. This panel is, this piece is a little bit too low contrast. Anyway, so let's say I did something like that. It's not beautiful. It's not great, but and then I want to definitely incorporate a little bit of the green around it. So it's like the ambient color that would be bouncing around. So let's just make sure we get a bit of this green and push this up. Just get to touch that green in there. Okay. I might push the contrast on this just a bit more. So this, I mean, this isn't like beautiful by any means, but then what I can do is, so I've got that. This edge is kind of nasty, so I'll go through, now that I've made it, I'll just go through with an eraser. And I have textured eraser, which is essentially the same brush. I just make sure the flow is nice and low on it. And I'll pull this out. Don't clean that up. And then the next thing is I can take that same mask that I've made and then just transform it here. Put it in a good spot. And I can either just delete off the rock. So let's say I just deleted off the rock and I have the selection. And since the selection's there, I can make a new layer. And then just add like a little, paint in a little bit of a highlight around this area. Okay, and there'd be a bit of a shadow around the rock, of course. Um, so like this is a little quick painting thing, at least that I've learned, is if you want to color and you sample it from here, this doesn't work very well because this is a very muted color. This is not the color I actually painted with. This weird grayish color here, I probably painted with something more like that. So it's just something to consider. You're not going to, just because you select this color doesn't mean you're actually going to get that look. That's the look of the color blended with the green. So it's just something to think about, which I always struggle with. I'm really not, by all rights, a really super strong painter. I kind of fuddle my way through it all. But okay, so because this is shadowed, we would have whatever. Like usually when I paint something, I make sure I have my sky painted. For sure, have my sky color available, so I know what the ambient temperature of the sky is. So I usually try to make sure that's in right away. And with that in mind, I can then decide what is, if there's a shadow, right? Like if this rock is blocking the sun, which is in this actual scene, the sun is actually positioned stage right, like way over here. So the shadows would be coming this way. So if this rock is blocking the sun, you're going to get the sky color would be the next light, kind of the ambient shade of the skylight around that rock. So that would be more like these colors. So then you can just like literally pick the color up here, drop its opacity way down, and just put some in there. This is awful. Like I'm doing like super fast and dirty, but you can see I've made a rock, and just by using that little mask thing, I've kept some of the details, and you can see it's essentially that's how it works. So that's, I guess I'll stop. I guess the last thing I do before I kind of quit talking about this is, because I keep my masks, and then let's just turn these off. I just learned this from Aaron Blay actually, which I think is really cool. It's really helped me maintain a bit, because sometimes I get these are like pretty refined edges, especially like it's not so much on this one because I used a bit more of a rough brush, but maybe this one, for instance, like it's very, all the edges are super hard. And I was saying in another video that your painting is a lot about your hard and soft edges, high contrast, low contrast. Um, so to try to get rid of some of this really digital crispness, which has got its own merit to it, right? But if you want to get capture back a little bit of the painterly style, for some reason I've lost my smudge. Where's my smudge? Mm, where did it go? I don't even know that I rarely use smudge, so I'm not really sure where the. That's weird. Definitely. Where? How do I expand this? Let's get out of full screen mode. Okay. Tab. Oh, I've done something terrible. I've lost all my button controls. Okay. Sorry, I'm making a terrible example. I don't know where my smudge brush is. If you know, I don't know where it is. Usually I click this and then there's the whole list of stuff comes down, but I'm not seeing it right now at the moment. Maybe it's buried under the blur, because I don't even have my blur tool or anything. Super weird. Where did they all go? I'm like in minimized painting mode. Oh, it's because it's in 3D mode. That's the worst. Okay, that's why. It was in 3D. So anyways, back to the thing. So here's my smudge brush. So I have, unfortunately, it's taken my tool presets away. I usually pop my tool presets over here because I've got so many of them. I have this thing Painterly Blend, and I got this from Aaron Blay as well. And it's just his grass brush, like it's one of a grass brush. But when you use it, you get this really nice kind of painterly blurring. So I'll go through and do this in different areas, kind of come through. This is after I've done everything, and just sort of wreck it a little bit if I'm feeling like it's too detailed. The nice thing about it is if you do this on a mask layer and you have all your painting and your brushwork underneath, you're not going to just blur it. And that's one of the things I tried once where I was doing this. Let's say, we'll duplicate this and flatten the layer and apply it. So if I do it if I do it on this layer like this before, like when it's flattened, what happens is everything gets blurred. So even the texture and stuff. And I found that when I composited that, um, when I composited this stuff, it started looking like the camera was out of focus all the time, and so it didn't look that painterly or good. It just looked blurry. Um, so I only do this after I've done the first pass is doing this. So going on the mask itself and just blurring it out because then I don't lose all these like cool little textural things that I've done. But then once I've done that and I've flattened it out because I'm happy with what I got, then I might go through and where there's like, let's say like this is a really ugly hard line, I'll go in and just blur that out like that, get rid of it. But I don't usually look super close at it. I try to be a little far back so I'm not being um, caught up too much in the minutia of everything. But that's what I'll do. And I'll kind of just any time where I feel like it's a little bit too crisp, I might come in, and that's after I flattened it. So there's two passes. There's the pass on the layer mask itself, just to like give some of that painterliness back to some of these edges, especially the grass and stuff like that. Bring some unpredictability in there and less patterny and tiley. And then come in and do this on the, and then you can do your blurring stuff. And like I said, if you just do it on the flattened thing, it just starts to look too blurry, I found anyway, for my taste. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking about painting now because I got to get back to this compositing business. So let's close this. Do not save. Mm. This isn't beer, by the way. This is water, just in case. This is beer. This is water. I actually had people come in the studio, and I would be drinking out of this. This is these are like beer bottles from Montreal, and I would drink my water out of this because I like would prefer to use glass bottles. And they would come in, and they thought I was drinking like at 10 in the morning, drinking out of these giant bottles of booze. I guess it's okay because they just thought I was super eccentric and everything, but I'm not actually that eccentric. Okay, okay, back to compositing now that we've digressed so completely. I'm gonna finish putting in these big trees. Might put one close. This one's not too big, so I might put this one in the foreground. I do need something to wipe the scene, so it may be a small tree, it may be a big tree is the better route. I'm not sure because I have to transition um, from this shot that we're making into why isn't this working? Up, 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 up. I need to transition into that shot. So I'm going to come from whatever my camera's doing here into this one. And so I'd like to have something to help me wipe it, just to give a consistent flow. So it can be a fade or it can be a cut, it doesn't matter. But as long as the camera move is relatively consistent and there's something helping wipe the frame, it should look okay. But you can see like, well actually I guess that's a good example here. This is using very similar types of assets, and you can see how much once you've done your treated it and given the atmospheric depth, how much stuff comes together compared to like looking at this. It's pretty harsh and ugly. It's not something I like. This is where I typically start. I panic a little bit because it starts to feel kind of ugly and gross, and I start thinking, "Ooh, maybe this isn't gonna look that good." Okay, so continuing. Dum. Okay, so this is where the shot will wipe. And I mean, so I'm gonna lay this together, and then I'll put the character in once I know the path, like so, because he's just gonna follow the path. And I'm into more procedural animation, so I like allowing the environment. I like my shots to feel a bit documentary if I can for animation, which is I typically have a bit of camera wiggle and stuff on it. So I don't mind when the environment dictates a bit of how the character moves. I have the luxury with the way that we make film projects to work that way. Like things aren't boarded so precisely with character acting and stuff like that. It's more about you have a certain amount of time for something to happen, and you just have to make sure that it happens somewhere in the frame. And I like to treat it more like you're catching the characters or filming like a live action thing a bit more. This has to be flipped because the light's on the wrong side. The bright side on this tree is on the left. So flip it. Anyways, so because of that, I tend to structure the environment first and then put the characters through it for me. And that also even dictates my walk cycles when I can really do a good one. I haven't been happy with any of the walk cycles I did in this project. They've been too mechanical because I just again I didn't have the time I needed or I wanted for it. So that just happens, small team, not a lot of time. Um, but usually what I like to do is I'll build an environment that I know I want the character to move through, and then I'll walk them through that space, and I'll make them adapt to the terrain. And so they have to. There tends to be a little bit more of a reactive, natural. I feel like more natural movement to it all. I like that. Okay. I definitely want a bit more of an open spot too. So we have this really dense stuff here. I would like a moment of breadth where you can be like, oh, like less oppressed by all the giant trees everywhere. So that's definitely something. It might be too open right now. You can bring this other tree in a bit more, make them look like they're friend trees. I like the coolness of this tree and then the warmth of this one. It starts to make it feel like there's a bit of sun touching that one while the other one's shadowed a bit. As long as they're far enough apart. That looks pretty cool. Could be too much together, but we'll see. I have so many trees. It's funny when I painted this, I thought, oh, I have all the trees I need. And now I tend to overdo it. I overdo everything, unfortunately. Okay, so this is a big stump. This stump could be the transition point, possibly. What I'll do is when we do the actual, I don't have time to do it for this output of the film, but we have a 4K version we have to do, and I will build an actual for real transition where it's a single object wiping the frame. So like I'll actually have, let's say, something wipe past, and that'll act as a matte. I may be able to do it in this version, but I'm not. I'm definitely not counting on it. This is probably too much. Hmm. We're losing the feeling of the stump because it's so close to the frame. It should probably be more something in the darker part of the forest. Let's bring it down here. Oops. Okay, and I've got to turn it around. Well, I don't know if I have to turn it around because the sunlight is top facing, but this is supposed to be dark. I mean, I could definitely tint it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It might be cool to have it in this little light patch, although I like where the ground is visible there. Let's see if we can use it. It'll probably be one of those things that I'll move around a whole bunch and then realize, it's not going to work. I mean, in reality, forests are so dense, there's just stuff everywhere in a forest, but it doesn't look good on film. It's really hard to film a forest, actually. Super hard to film a forest and make it look good because they tend to just be so busy looking. There's just so much stuff happening in the frame. There's an interesting segment, if any of you've ever watched it, on the behind the scenes documentaries on Lord of the Rings, which I really love those behind the scenes. They have like 9 hours of behind the scenes, and they do talk about how difficult it is to film a forest well. So this is the wrong color. I also think it's just too chunky. Like it's not. I like this respite in this area and opening it up so it's not all just. You get some of this like this texture happening here, and there's a little bit vaguer. I think we're gonna need that. I think things are just getting a little too dense. I might let this area be super dense, but I don't know if I need to use the stump. Unfortunately, I liked the stump, but I'm not going to be able to use it. Excuse me. This tree I'll probably use. I'll just push it back. I like this one too. It's funny. I always paint stuff that I like. If I really like something, there's always a good chance I won't get to use it because it becomes too much of a feature, and then there's a lot of implications on having something that's yeah, it's just like this'll like again, this'll change a lot. A lot of this stuff will just have to change. It's inevitable. But I like the idea of making the forest super dense in the start, and then it thins out as we go up the hill. I kind of wanted this like deep, dark, and coolness here, and then as we come through this area, it starts to lighten up, and then we start of coming out of the oppressive darkness of it all. So what I'll do with this is I'll definitely light it. I'll use lights because you can use tinting for sure. To do a tint is great, a tritone or something, or a three-way tint. But it's a lot of manual labor, right? You're gonna have to tint every single tree. Um, so what can work better sometimes, at least for me, I can't do that because that tree doesn't have enough light on it. It's just what can work better for me is actually throwing a light in it. So the light will tint the whole area and push all the color a certain way. And that's what I used a lot. I used it in pipelines. I didn't use it a lot in CO2, but I definitely used the technique a lot. Let's just do that. Cool. It's like a really cool big tree. This will feel a bit like, what's it called? Can't even remember the name all of a sudden. The forest that Endor, the moon of Endor. Because that was all filmed in BC, where it's very similar. So yeah, this spot is too open. But you know what? I haven't even put my actual real trees in yet because I also have all these other trees and they're like thin trees. So maybe I may not end up using them. But I only have a few big trees left. Of course, I can reuse some of them. I really like this one too. This is a huge tree. This one's nice and dark and cool. Sometimes I paint stuff that I accidentally really like. Most of the time, I kind of feel like I never love what I paint. I always feel like if someone else painted it, they would probably paint it better. But sometimes I accidentally paint stuff that I kind of like. Usually it's because it feels like somebody else's painting and not mine. So it's gonna look pretty crappy right now because everything is sitting on top of each other. But once we start getting the atmosphere in, it'll start to separate all this busyness out a little bit, and then we can prune. We can start pruning it all in. I really, you know what? I want that tree to feel massive, so I might push it even further back. Let's go to 4,000 because we have a tree at 35 already. Scale it way up. I wanted to maybe come through in where. So I'm trying to pick little spots where there's moments in the film, in the tracking shot that are like little nice spots. So instead of treating the whole thing like one painting, I treat it like little moments of paintings. So I look for little precious spots that feel nice. this is where I'll have the trees being a lot thinner because we want it to transition into this shot up here. So the trees are quite a bit thinner. There's a couple of these big ones. And these are all reused, right? So I'd already painted these. Um, but I want to go from the big trees to the thinner trees because we're more on the upper hill of the mountain where the trees would typically thin out a bit or get the environment's a little bit harsher. So the trees aren't as, they don't thrive the same way. Okay. If I'm talking too quiet, let me know. I'll turn the mic up a little bit. Everybody's sleeping because I'm working from home right now. So I'm trying not to talk too loud. Okay. This is a pretty cool tree too. Nice and cool. I mean, it's a neat tree, but it's also like the colors are nice and cold, so it fits more in the beginning part of the journey. I mean, I do have some imposter greens in here that are quite warm, like that little patch of green right there. And this foreground tree is like that little patch is quite warm. There's a little patch right there. Um, I may move some of these trees I can't move because they're part of a full big layer, which is, you know, like I say, usually I make trees one at a time and then I position them to really sculpt the scene because now I have this like medium-sized tree that's sitting on top of it, or a nice big tree for so long, but it's okay. Cool. This forest is gonna look so crazy. Let's make this one super far. I might regret this because I'll probably have a whole bunch of I have a bunch of other layers I have to put in here. But I want this one to be huge. This is another really big tree. I just don't want to waste it, but at the same time, what do you do? It's animation. Do all these nice paintings and you only see them for a second. They're obscured by everything. I think like for me, the goal of animation, a lot of this stuff is trying to capture a feeling. That's what I focus more on is the feeling, not the artwork and not much of anything really. Even the animation, even though it's important, um, this particular project, the animation is so much different because we're 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 working with a different character animator, and so the animation style is so different. So it's just emphasized even more to me how important it is just to capture their feeling. It doesn't really matter how the characters are animated. I tend to really over animate the characters, and David doesn't waste as much time in that. He's a little bit looser because he comes from a traditional background, so he doesn't get as caught up in the nuances that which I tend to get lost in because I have puppets and they're breathing and they're blinking, they're doing all this procedural animation, so they're very complex. But what I realized is that they don't need to be. Okay, so this is a lot of trees. And then we've got this area that really thins out. But this is going to be busier with smaller trees. I may have to get rid of these three giants, which look a little bit like it gets really clumpy. But it might not be so bad once I get the fog in. So I can't tell 100% yet. I'm going to drop in some of my. So this is, I made a bunch of fog layers. This one's a goth layer for some reason. A GOF. It's not a fog, it's a GOF. It's different. Guess I had a moment of dyslexia. Not to make light of it. I know dyslexia is really difficult. But these fog layers will really help. So eventually, like they're white. We won't actually make them white. We'll kind of tint them to yellows and cools, and they'll really help. Like you'll see a huge difference in the way the scene is broken up. So watch this. So as I push this in, and then we'll like scale this up, and then we can blur them. And I usually do tons and tons of them, and you'll start the forest will start to feel broken apart more. It won't feel so like crunched on top of each other. So um, a lot of that just comes down to like I'm confident this won't look as horrible as it looks right now. But if I were newer at this process, I would probably be freaking out a little bit right now. I'd be panicking about how hideous this looks. Let's bring this tree over a bit. I'm going to start at the edge of the tree. Cool. I probably will have to get rid of some of these big trees because they sort of linger on a little bit too much. They should probably almost like this guy here, not this guy. Let's lock that guy. This tree here. We'll probably have to. We'll see. I probably should have it out of frame. Like it's just a little busy feeling. It might look better once there's some depth. Oh, maybe it's this big guy here that I really like so much that's ruining everything. And these two can come over. Oh, I think I'm selecting a layer. Oh, no, that's right. So I want this one and I want that one. But can I even grab those two? Cool. So maybe push these guys over a little bit. That's better. Cool. Okay. That tree is so big and distant. Cool. That's like a big cluster right here. But I do think that should thin out a bit. This guy's probably needs to come over. As cool as this tree is, it's kind of just not doing anything. That's okay. Just don't want him to I might just bring that guy closer. Probably just too far back. Because you got to remember when things are further back, they move slower in the scene as the camera moves, so they don't travel as much. So they tend to be a little bit unruly. Get out of the frame as quickly. Okay. Okay, that feels better. All right. I am like imagining the fog and stuff, which is because right now it's just a sea of brown and gook. Sorry, I should be more zoomed in. It's just normally I do literally work tiny like this, or even sometimes like this little thumbnail size. I don't. It just helps me get a better sense of what's happening. No, I don't know. I don't know why I work like that. I guess because I can see all the layers outside of it too. Okay, so I painted top foliage. I'm not sure how much we're going to use it. I was going to paint so much more of it. I'm glad I didn't. This is this stuff. So this is just like this top foliage that's sitting on top of the trees, but I feel like there's so much in the frame right now. If I start adding a bunch of top foliage, it's going to be so oppressive. I'll add a little bit, but I want to be careful with it because it'll also murder the majesty of the trees. They'll start to feel it'll just feel like really claustrophobic, and I think I want it to feel more like grand. And because we can't tip the camera up, we have to work with this very side scrolling thing. And like the character, like I can move the road down a little bit, but I'm hesitant to move the road down because then we lose. I want to keep them center framed, I think. It's not specifically about the tallness of the trees, otherwise I would make the character really small and I would bring the ground down and I wouldn't have so many bushes in the front. It's too late to recomp the scene to feel that way. Like the character on the bike will be probably about this big. Like he'll fill about probably about 15% of the frame. So he's not gonna be this tiny thing in this beautiful, amazing forest because it is about him. It is about his environment, but it's also about him as equally. It's not meant to be this like epic shot, even though I feel like that'd be really cool, but I didn't build it that way, so I can't work that way. Like the scale of the leaves and stuff are they're too big. Like the ferns and stuff, I can't make the guy like just this tiny thing in this giant forest because there's so much detail in these things. I'd have to like I can't work. Anyways, it'd be cool, but it's not gonna happen. This shot's gonna be a little more modest, a little less cinematic. I'm just doing a quick render so we can get a feel of it. I don't have any camera jiggle or anything on there, which I'll add eventually. So one thing I have to be careful of, which is why I usually make so many layers, is I try to avoid everything looking really flat. So this tree, not this foreground tree, but some of these bushes, especially between here. So if you watch between this bush back here, like this one, I don't know if you can see my mouse, this tree, and then this foreground one, there's probably too much space because it feels like a big flat, to me anyways, like a flat spot. I kind of need something in there to fill it up to make it feel more rich and full. This area is working good. This has got a bit too much flatness maybe. Probably use a couple little things in there. And then this probably needs a little bit of something. Even though I like its darkness, I just have to be careful of it not looking too, well, for me anyway, I don't want it to look too panel-y. Like I don't want it to feel like just a bunch of flat layers. I definitely get that feeling right here in this area. It feels like panels, flat panels stuck on top of each other. And I want to get that sense of forest and bushiness. So I'll make sure, and even right there too, right in this area. So everything, it's just too sparse. So probably if we look at our comp this way, we'll see exactly what the problem is. Well, if we can find that spot specifically, it's in here. As things get closer to the camera, they get closer together. It's just the way it tends to work with your eye. So you'll see there's probably a lack of things here. There's a thing here and here, but there's like a lack of stuff in the middle there. It's a bit hard to tell, but I can see it just by looking at it right now. Oh, it looks pretty hideous right now. Okay. A scene like this will probably take me 2 days to composite and really look good. And I'll probably end up rendering it about 4 or 5 times just to see all the little problems in it that things like just like this where it looks really flat. So with that in mind, so we've done our big trees for now. I think I want to focus a little bit. So I have more bushes. I want to focus on bushes right now. I'm not going to stick more trees in just yet. So I have all these little tree layers. I'm going to focus just on bushes. And I have a couple of these bushes that, the ones, I think these A ones that I made more like an island, I'm going to focus on using those for now. Just to fill things up a little bit because they're more versatile. And it might get a little repetitive, but I need some things to fill in some spots. So like I was saying, let's just turn this one off for a sec. Just gonna give it a different color so I know. So it's that spot there. It's a little bit empty. And so we'll like, so what I do is I'll take this and I'll position it and I'll bump it in and I'll see how long it takes for me to bump from one layer to the other. Quite a bit of space. So I need to populate that a little bit. And it's okay, it's repetitive. Like there'll be a lot of similar shapes over and over again. But if I make sure that the colors are right, it won't stand out too much. And that way our eyes won't notice that I'm tiling stuff. I could flip it to, I'll probably use certain layers, some layers I'll use up to 10 times over again just to create like a volume, which is no different than you'd do if you were doing like a particle, like a particle effect or something. It's just about creating the illusion. So let's bring this stuff down. Kind of just want to cool this one off a little bit. Bring it into this realm of color. I like a little splash of color in there for sure though. Um, but I also kind of like it like nice and dark too. That actually looks pretty dope. Kind of into that. It's kind of rad. Maybe I'll make our these. Oh, this is in the blues. And then I don't want to lose this. I'm just gonna back this one because I think it looks cool. But turn that off. And then just gonna do a quick experiment here. See if this looks better. If it's in more in the greens or in the blues or even in the purples. I'm always shocked how cool, like, purple works so well with greens, like pinkish and purple. You can see I've got these little splashes of pink everywhere. I really find it's a bit unconventional. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just because I haven't trained in color theory properly. But I find for me, it just adds something really nice. I like that color. That's super cool. Cool. I thought I was going to go light with it, but I like it as a dark. Now I have to figure out, I'll have to watch it, so we'll just play it back a little bit. I think that looks really nice. Cool, cool, cool. So now, essentially, like I say this all the time, and people are, I'm sure, like if we ever have more viewers on this channel, people start to get tired of my redundant statements. But right now, I guess I don't have to worry about it because there's only a handful of us. But at this stage, you're essentially painting with layers. So you're kind of redesigning the whole painting with layers. So it's kind of fun, actually. So let's just get a feel for that. It might be too close together. Quite far enough apart. These two guys are just a little too close, but I want something more in the middle. Around there somewhere. Eventually, what I do is I have this little plugin that we made here that takes all the layers and orders them based on their depth, their depth from the camera, how far away they are from the camera. And that makes it a lot easier because right now everything's all over the place. Like this one's at negative 2300, this one's at negative 2090. Like it's a lot better when you can go through the composition and be like everything that's up at the top is closer or in behind the camera and everything going down is further and further in. It just makes it a lot easier to work with it and figure out what layers what. So I will be doing that pretty soon. This was another empty spot. So let's take, what is this one? No. Let's use this one because we used the other one already. There it is. It's super massive, too big. Scale it down. Let's center this. Oh, hey, Colin, Harvey, welcome. Yeah, we will also, I think there's a plugin. We made that plugin, um, and then we were going to put it on AE, the AE site. I can't remember AE, not AE Tuts, but the plugin version of that site. And they said there's already a plugin that does it, which is totally fine. So we didn't end up putting it up there. We'll probably just like we'll put a lot of this stuff up, and we won't we're not looking to make a whole bunch of money off it, but we'll put it out there. Some of these things that are things already exist, we're obviously not going to try and compete with them. Um, but so things like that. I couldn't find it though. I couldn't find the plugin that they talked about. So when we tried to release it, um, the guy told us that there was already a plugin that did that. So yeah, AE scripts. That's exactly it. So apparently there's a plugin that does that ordering, that layer ordering thing. But I couldn't find it, so we just made one, and it actually works really well. It's not 100% perfect because we never planned on releasing it. We never got to that stage of really bringing it through up to release. So, but it is something I'll put out there because it's just simple, right? It doesn't do a lot of extra. It just does that one thing. One of the plugins we want to work on is a compositing plugin that will, and I know there's something else that already does this too, but we want it sort of, if we put it with this one that does the layer ordering, and then also it's just like it could be a compositing process as part of a process that I know I make it more for what I'm familiar with, but that does a scaling lock for, whoops, for objects. So once you've, not only can you reorder them, but you can select an object and you put on a scaling lock. So as you push it back, it holds its scale compared to the camera. And then if you change your focal length, the objects would rescale appropriately. Because that's one of the big things. If you mess up your focal length and then there's a lot of recompositing and rescaling that has to happen. It can be pretty dreadful, actually. Okay, I think I might make this. I'm going to try. I don't want to make this one stand out a ton from these guys here, but I don't want it super dark. I don't think I want this area to pop that much. It might be nicer as a bit of a, let's try this green area, that realm of, I'm really just looking to add depth, and a lot of that is imperceptible in many ways. It can't be too dramatic. So I have to be careful. I don't want it to stand out too much, but it will make a difference in making it not feel so much like a flat painting. Okay, so this should be adding some, so we definitely need some more. So I'm going to duplicate this guy again, even though we've already used it. Bring it a little bit closer. So I'm going to try to fill up the gap in between here. Scale it up a bit. I'll flip it. Flipping isn't always good though, because sometimes it's a very good reminder of the cheat you're doing. But I also rotate them, right? So that's why I make the islands like they are. So they're these like semicircles, because I can rotate this. If it's some, yeah, the plants get at a bit of an angle, but that's okay to a degree, right? So now I've rotated this, so it's become quite a bit of a different part. And as long as the piece isn't so unique that it really stands out, you're not going to notice a little bit of repetition. But I do watch for it. So when I do my final outputs, I really watch for it to make sure that I'm not I'm not catching the repetition. Now this has become quite orange. The question is we are transitioning for right now from the more tealy greens and purples to this orangey area. So this is a bit of a transition point. So I'm going to live a little bit more in the browns, let that orange come through on the tint, and then we kind of move into these sort of oranges and warmer colors. Which I can't remember. Yeah, like once we get to the top of the hill, oops, sorry, things are pretty brown. I don't know why I made it so brown, but I just did. It's super brown. I don't know why I did that. I felt like it just looked better for some reason. It must be spring or something. It was originally supposed to go through a change of season, but I didn't have the time to paint like the snow and stuff like that, so I didn't end up doing it. But anyways, quite brown. Must be just fall or after winter or something. Okay. Moss though, that's the thing is moss doesn't really change even in the winter. It stays pretty vibrantly green all the time. Just gonna move this over here. Okay. So that, I mean, it's okay that a lot of our moss can be green because moss does stay green. If you're ever on the side of a mountain and you're in the middle of snow and winter or something, you'll dig underneath the snow a little bit and you'll find the moss is quite vibrantly green even if all the grass is dead. Okay, so now we have to start populating this background a little bit. I'll continue to flesh out the foreground. Maybe I'll just play this back really quick. Actually, one thing to do too is just purge the memory. No, it's fine. It's been a while, but it hasn't accumulated too much. I think I want to get a little more depth here. So I might grab one of these guys that are down here. I can't just like grab things very easily actually. Um, this bush is B. I'm not quite sure which one this is. Oh, this is a huge one. I'm gonna grab this one. We'll pull it. That's too light. I think I want this area to stay pretty dark, but we'll see. Now this one was not designed properly, but one side of it's okay. And what I want to do is just get a little bit more depth in here. And I might just do this and pull this one down a bit and get it to match more the colors behind here. So let's go. I think we're already pretty much doing that, but we'll just do this and make sure that we're actually this will be the lightest. That's so dark, but it'll probably be way too dark. Put it there, and then mid will be here. I'll bring it up just a touch. We'll see how that looks. Might look horrible. Well, oops, wrong. Did I just do it to the wrong layer? I think I did. Yes, I did. I was ruining a good layer. Sorry. Light, mid, and then let's bring the a little more blue. Okay. It's a pretty finicky process. Well, it's not finicky, it's just subtle. It's too much. Okay, let's see if we're even close. It's a little bluer, less green. Okay, that's all right. I don't love this patch here though. It's probably because my highlights are, can keep them, but they need to be lighter. It should be a highlight, not a, it gets way too flat. So let's just pick a color that's a bit, and then we'll just amp it up. It's warm, but maybe it'll look okay. It's too bright, but I need a little bit of contrast because otherwise it looks crappy. Okay, that gives us a bit of depth. A little more, and eventually I'll bring in some really close stuff, and that'll really fill the super foreground. Okay, and then I'm gonna see. Actually, I might grab these bushes because I only use them down there and bring them way over here and up here. Because remember, we need some stuff here. And this bush layer. See, I don't know what color. I can't remember. Yeah, so it's quite pretty orange. Um, Scale it up to 40 and its position. Just bring it a little bit closer. I want to see where this grassy layer is. I think it's all one layer. This is all one big giant donk. See, bump, one huge layer. There's a bit of a gap in between those two and then this one. So I might just take this, and this has sort of a similar palette right around here. And I'll just put this in there. Even though I lose that really nice simplicity I like, the only thing I don't like is it starts to look pretty flat, especially when the camera's moving. You know, it's great as a still, but it doesn't have the vibrance or the density I feel like it needs once the camera's moving. It just looks like a big piece of flatness. And let's push the colors a little bit more in the realm. And the darks are around here. It's definitely warm. Tint on and reduce like crazy. Just want to push it a little bit there. I want it to stand out, but not too much. So it's a touch greener. So Let's make this a bit greener. Just pull that up there. Okay. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but maybe this could be a touch bluer or greener as well. I don't know. That's probably not a good color. Is it doing anything awful? Okay, that looks close enough, I think. Cool. All right, so I guess I'll render this out just a little bit. We can have a look at it. I gotta stop working by 3. Colin and Spanrita, like, how come you guys are up so late? Where are you from? Actually, I guess like time zone wise, I'm in Montreal, so here it's 3 in the well, it's 2, quarter after 2. I know on the West Coast it's not. It's probably just after 11. Okay. So I think it's getting a lot better as far as how fleshed out it is. This feels a little weird here. This could probably use something here, but I'll use a foreground thing. Oh, you're in Sydney. Okay. Sydney, Australia, I'm assuming, yeah? Yeah, I work every week. We're in a small studio, so as like heads of small studio, you pretty much work constantly. Oh, and Colin, you don't see. Yeah. Okay, okay. Um, yeah, I used to work before I had a kid. I always worked constantly, um, super late. I would work until like 4 in the morning, and then you could just sleep until like 10 or something. My sister's Spanrita. My sister lived in Australia for about a year. I can't remember the town that she lived in. She didn't live in Sydney. Brisbane, maybe she lived there for outside of there for a little while, and then she moved somewhere else. She was doing her veterinary studies. Oh, I think Colin's saying he's directly down 2 hours south. So Colin, you're in the States? Are you in the States or are you in Canada? Okay. All right, I gotta get some of this background fleshed out. Oh, you're in Vermont. Vermont's beautiful. I've been to Vermont before. I went to Stowe, which I'm sure like it's probably pretty touristy. You know what? This one might be linked to a tree layer, so I better make sure. Okay, so I think these 3 layers here are linked together. Oh, computer's thinking about something. Okay, seafoam, that's fine. All right, so let's have a look. I might start, now that most of my layers are now active, there's some weird stuff happening here. I might just start turning off this isolate eyeball thing and just turn off the layers that I'm not using because I'm getting too many layers now. Okay, yeah, Stowe's beautiful. Actually, it's sort of similar. It's sort of similar to where I grew up. Stowe. I grew up in the West Coast, close, not the West Coast, but in the West. I grew up in the west of Canada, in um, in the Banff area, Banff, Alberta, and so it's very mountainous and lots of pine trees and stuff like that. Very sort of similar. Well, I don't know if it's similar. It's similar to Stowe. I don't know if it's similar to where like what city you're in. But if it's 20 minutes away, you must be pretty. It must be quite nice where you're living. I'm assuming. Okay, so it's pretty much all the same. Okay, well, it is a pretty place. I'd like to go to Sydney though too. I think Sydney looks cool. I mean, what do you I like Spun Reader. What do you think of Sydney? Do you like it there? Are you happy there? Is it a huge city? I'm assuming it's pretty large. I've not been there myself, of course. It's a pretty big flight actually from here. I think it's a pretty epic trip to get out there. Okay, so this layer is supposed to work with these trees. This layer looks really ugly without the trees. It looks unreal, reasonably dark in patches. Do you know what the population of Sydney is off the top of your head? Or I mean, I guess you could just Google it. Okay, so that's probably too much. Let's go 300 and 150. So now I'm just trying to give a little bit of depth to these trees. Now, when I painted these trees, I painted them as part of the layer, which, like I said before, I don't usually do that. I usually paint the trees separately, but for this time, I just painted them together, which I regret in some ways because I painted it so that the shadows and stuff would work. But now, of course, the shadows aren't going to work perfectly because the trees aren't going to be completely lined up with everything. Now I've got like little gaps so you can see that the just got to get it down so it's tucked away. There you go. So there's a little bit of depth in there so we can see a touch of parallax, but not too much. And so then we can also have those shadows lined up. I think it's more important that these shadows here line up the top. Great. Okay, you can see where I did a bit of that blurring thing that I was talking about earlier. Okay, cool. Now my concern with this though is I threw in all those big trees. So this might not work very nicely with those big trees. We'll see. 5.5 million. Yeah, that's pretty big. I mean, I live in Montreal right now and I think that's like about 4 million. And Montreal, I guess in Canada is considered it's probably like it's a larger city, but it's not that big. Like Toronto is much larger. So Montreal is considered like a people call it here, they call it a sort of a big small town. But the population here is limited because it's on an island in the middle of a river. Okay, well, I think these trees are working okay. I don't know. They're not horrible. I just have to make sure they're not as long as they're not interacting too closely with some of the trees, but some of those background trees. But they're pretty close to they're not far from the ground layer, so let's bring these up a little bit. Well, my geography is equally horrible. I am literally an embarrassment to humanity with when it comes to geography. Um, so you don't have to feel bad about that. I didn't actually know Montreal was on an island either. It's not, I guess it's only an island because it's literally on a river. It's on a very big river and it sits in the middle of a very large and slow river. but in Canada, Montreal is it's one of the oldest cities. Quebec City is older, um, but it's one of the oldest cities. Canada's not that old. I think Montreal is about, I can't remember. Quebec is over 400 years old, but Montreal is like 300 or something like that. It's not that old for as far as cities go. Although I think Australia's history is similar, where it's not, this history is not as far back. Montreal, I think, is 300 years old, roughly. I mean, the like people were here a lot earlier than that, but um, Europeans were here earlier than that, but it wasn't really officially a city, I don't think, until the 1600s. I could Google it, but I'm like, how old is Sydney? I suppose Sydney was colonized a little bit later, right? Because it wasn't. Okay, so they came in 1788. So I mean, it was a little bit later than Canada, but it's still, yeah, it's like it's still that period where the indigenous populations are still well within, are really quite recent. So we have a similar. Your history is worse than your geography. My history is not good either, but we definitely in Canada we have there's a similarity with the way, the impact that the Europeans and how recently had an impact on the indigenous cultures here. So there's like, I know that, yeah, it's definitely more recent history for sure. Okay, so I'm just scrubbing back and forth trying to. I don't like this like purple color that's here, but I'm gonna leave it for now. I'll figure it out later. I don't love this bushy mess right there. It's like completely blocking my tree. So I might have to, as I'm putting things in, I'm going to have to, I will have to move things around. But I'm almost through all the layers. So these three layers go together, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so we'll put the trees to here, and the foliage to the trees. So everything will be based off the trees. Put the trees in 100. Pull the foliage off. I don't know, negative 150, just to give it a little bit of depth. And these trees, I'm not quite sure where to put them, but I definitely have to push them in a little bit. But I'm going to have to look at my whole comp to do this. So this is the stuff I was talking about was going to be a problem, is my big trees, but then I have this mid-ground stuff that has to take priority over the big trees. So I'm going to just turn off all the big trees for now, and then we'll reposition them. Maybe I was possibly a bit premature in my enthusiasm for putting the big trees in. I'm going to color them all. Excuse me. Here we go. So we'll just turn them off for now so we can get a better sense of what's actually going on with the big pieces, because these ones I don't have as much control over because all the trees are connected. So it's probably a better idea, like because these are all stuck together, it's probably a better idea for me to position these and get them looking good and then put the big trees around them. I mean, I don't have to use them, but they're tied with the shading on the bushes. So, oh wait, these are different trees. I can turn those ones off. So these two are okay. These ones are connected to the bushes. Okay, so I thought that was different. So we can turn this off. This is a far background tree layer, a thin tree layer. So it's these ones, these two, and they're sort of paired together. So there's the foliage and then just these trees. So these guys are kind of like the last layer of bushes um, and trees, and they should be the highest because they have to rise above everything to give us our far background essentially, or like the final layer of background before everything cuts off. I could reuse bushes and stuff like that, like some of the foreground bushes that I did, and throw them back. It'll just take a lot of them to make it work, and I probably will. But I'd like it. I think I want to make it feel more like a hill. So I mean, there's a constant compromise. It's a little bit of a dance to make this work, just because of the way it's painted. It's Bonarita saying that that they're impressed that I can kill my darlings when a piece or a layer I love isn't working. I think I can only do that because I've been doing this for so long. It was super hard at first to let stuff go, but I think like I throw away a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make it in. Even animation, like there's shots that you barely see the character. And it's a really hard thing. It's a hard thing to do because there's a um an impulse to feature animation. Like that's I guess that's the thing is I was writing a film script for a long, long time, and I started to realize that as an animator, I tended to write very specific types of scripts. It definitely things were more like Alice in Wonderland stories where like a character walking through a really interesting, strange space, and it became more about a reason to animate something and illustrate something than something that actually serves the story. And the thing about a film is every shot is part of the story. That looks a little weird for some reason. What's going on there? And if something isn't serving the shot, you just have to get rid of it. And it's hard to do, but that's the thing too is I'm also because of the I worked as an editor for a long time, for a few years as a film editor. I was doing film editing in high school, and so I was really used to cutting together film, or like not film but video projects. And because I was used to cutting together video, um, I got a pretty good sense of what worked and what didn't, and what I could get away with and what I couldn't. And so I definitely look at animation from the perspective more of an editor than an animator. And as an editor, you're constantly throwing stuff away. There's something kind of weird. I can see through the trees here. Like, you see that tree there? I can see through it. And where is that tree? I have to figure out where this tree is because they are, it is see-through. I'm positive it's see-through. It is definitely see-through. Let's push it down a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now what's happened is because I've got this bush stuff, and I've got this like mound, which I kind of think is cool, like this rocky lift here. Whoops. So I like it, um, but it's definitely going to get in the way of some of the cool big trees, which unfortunately we'll just have to go with because if I shut down this layer, I'm really losing um, a lot of what was, it's not, I lose my far background, so then it's going to feel really empty. But this could probably be further back even. Hmm, that's why that feels so flat. This is a little bit strangely configured. So this foreground layer I'm finding is a bit too high. I'm trying to rotate it down so I can pivot. Like if it gets too low, like this middle part, there's nothing there, and technically there's lots there, but I can't bring it up and have it in there. And also there's lots back here, which I need to fill up this. So part of what I'm trying to do is just tip it so I can preserve some of this stuff here, which is important to give some depth to the background bushes, but also not lose the middle while bringing down this top part a bit. I may not be able to find a good compromise here. So one option I could do, worst case scenario, is just break this layer up and start repositioning it literally like this. Because I have, I have all these nice rocks and stuff that I can't even see now. You see, look at all that stuff. All that great stuff is gone. Can't even see it. But if I make it too much of a priority, I'm going to lose the sky completely. I'll just have this like giant wall of So what I may do, I may just double this up. A little bit of thinking has to be done here. It's a bit of damage control in some ways. Okay. Okay, so that's a middle set. Okay, let's just see something here. With this, and this. So that's this one. Which is okay that it terminates there. And we've just pushed it back a little bit, so that's fine. And then we have this one, which currently is here. I wonder if I did, let's just, I made this part, but I did like how this was like a deep forest, but I have to think about this. Just want to make sure the colors are really working. This is the hard thing about forests, is you're just like, okay, so this one's okay. This one terminates well. This one does not. So there's this guy here, which is not ending nicely at all. It's got this big hard edge on it, so I might have to, but it is, this one is causing me trouble. I may have to just eliminate it completely. See what this is doing. We have that, okay. And that's a little further down, which is better. But I do not super love the way the colors are working. Like these really bright highlights are kind of ugly. And I don't want to have to go back in and paint it if I don't have to. So I just need to decide what's important. That looks pretty good there, but is it going to hold up? No, it looks awful right now. I really don't like this layer. This is definitely a bit of a problem. Just gonna kill that layer for now. Really struggling with that one. I may end up not using it. It's just really making the whole set like claustrophobic. Like this feels nice to me. This feels a lot nicer without that mess we were trying to. Let's bring this up a little more. Just want to get a little bit of stuff in here. Now that gets too high though. So you might just have to let that go too. Because this middle section gets a little too large and chunky. I don't want to lose the feeling of the land there. You have to be really careful not to lose the sky. I think the sky's pretty important. Okay, so we'll just keep that. So I wonder Now, I'm going to treat this more like a puzzle piece now and less like a whole big landscape piece. So we'll keep, those are the trees for that layer. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this layer and see what we can salvage from it. And see if there's anything that's usable in this mess. Maybe scale it down. I'm finding something really hideously offensive about it. But the big problem, I guess, well, not the big problem, a problem with it is I'm trying to use it all the way through and maybe it's just not going to work, you know? So there might be a better way. Scale it down. Because I was trying to make it so it like lasted the whole pan, which isn't necessarily important. I just want to get it looking good in a spot. See, it doesn't look good here because there's no, those light highlights are uncalled for. They just seem a little bit out of nowhere. Here it's a bit better. Okay. I don't mind the like highlights here. It kind of feels nice. Maybe I think if that's the right layer, yeah. Feels nice there. Let's tip this down just a bit. Bring this up. I like these rocks, kind of adding a little bit of character to this space. But the thing I don't want to do, do I like that better though? I mean, that is nicer, but in some ways I want to get a little bit of diversity in this. So we're going to have this problem. So this whole thing's coming up. So that's hideous, but I can cut it off. So we'll take this and you'll just mask it off. So long, problem. All right, and then we'll just feather this mask off a little bit, or a lot of it. There we go. And we will have to deal with the trees. So there's going to be foliage running around in here somewhere. There's really not much. I probably should just turn it off. Not that, sorry, with the foliage. It's a little bit ridiculous. I have a huge layer and I'm only using a tiny part of it. Let's put these two on. There we go. So these trees are tied to this, so that's why I'm doing this. And we will keep this tree and we'll get rid of everybody else. All right, cool. It's such a pretty mess, thanks. I'm glad it's not a totally hideous mess. It's like if someone has vomited a beautiful mess of color. It's gross and kind of weird, but it's intriguing, I suppose. Okay. I don't like that middle tree. It looks stupid. I think what I'll probably do is, I think I might, I know what I could do. Bring this down a bit. And then I'm going to bring this one up a bit there. That helps deal with those weird yellow pops, except for here. I hate that yellow pop there. It doesn't work well. It works less when I bring this up because it's just sticking out of nowhere. It feels really unjustified. I don't think I can move this layer over. I suppose I could. Let's see. Let's go all the way to the end. So, no, I can't move that layer over, but I could move this one. Oops, this one over. I'm just trying to get it so that the colors are working together and they make sense visually. Hmm. I really don't like those highlights. They seem really, they almost like seem like a line. Well, thanks for hanging out, Spun Rita. Enjoy your day. And it's always a pleasure. It's nice to have you guys hanging out. Have a good one. Yeah, I hate those highlights. They're nasty. I'm gonna just have to. I think I'm gonna just have to get rid of. I don't want to totally get rid of this piece 'cause I really like those rocks. But what I could possibly do, it probably won't work. I could just, if I really want this, I could go back in the original comp and just paint those rocks in. So I'm gonna try to work without that layer. It's a bit of a shame because I do like some stuff that was happening in it, but those highlights are rotten. I could probably go back in and paint on that layer and fix them up. I might just have to do that. I don't usually do that, but I might have to because they're too much. They need to be toned down. They just like they stick out really badly. They're not really playing nicely with the rest of the scene. All right, let's just fix it. It's pretty rare that I have to go back in and fix a painting, but let's do it. Slow. All right. I definitely need some stuff in the background for sure. Okay, so let's go. We're going to open up. I moved the file onto a local disk because it was just taking so long to save off the network drive, so I just put it here. I have a group that I collected right here. So I'm going to just open this one. We'll just fix up that one layer, the garbage layer that looks horrible. But I have sweet rocks. I probably should, excuse me, I probably should separate the rocks off because I don't have a lot of rocks and I like what they add little accents to the scene. But I can't see any of my rocks. Like I've lost all of them. I made all these nice rocks, but you never even see them. You see, like, I guess this is the thing is like, check out this painting, how it looks here. Like, I'll never get that to happen in the After Effects composition. To make this happen and actually make it work and hold together, it just doesn't work that way because once all the layers are moving, it doesn't live that way anymore. So you really have to give up on, well, for me anyways, and maybe it's like a lack of skill set or understanding on my side, but you really do have to let go of some stuff like that. So I'm going to take this layer and just so I don't, I'm going to copy it and make a new file. Don't, because I also want to grab these rocks. I want to, because I like this stuff. I hate what's happening up here a lot, but I like this stuff here. So what I'll do is I'm going to create a layer mask on this. Probably not the best way to do it. Actually, let's go like this. I'm going to grab a brush here. Unfortunately, I have to work within the limits of this setup because I don't have my palette, my Coolaris thing, brush presets. So I usually put them there too because I got so many of them, and that's fine there. So let's grab, I just want to grab a good foliage edge brush. This one's probably okay. It's a bit small. Maybe let's grab one of Aaron Blay's or Aaron Blay. I don't know how it, if he was French, it would be Blay. Okay, so this is one of his. Can use this for my mask just to grab around the rock. So let's go like this. What can we do? 0, shift 0. So I'm making sure everything's at 100%. Make it white. So I'll use that because I kind of use that brush around here anyway. So I'm going to use this. So let's actually do this. Let's pull this selection. What do we like? I like this stuff, but this should kind of come down because I need to make this into an island that I can use as a template. So I'm going to cut here, and I'm going to come here, and then I'll bring those rocks in. So I'm going to use those two, and then I'm going to come down. I might, maybe what might be smarter is to split this into two. Actually, let's do that. So we'll take this layer. I'm gonna grab this. That'll be one islandy thing. There we go. And I'm gonna fix this in a second. You'll see that, and then we'll have another one here. So first thing, we'll just duplicate this layer. Then okay, and then put the layer mask on. Oops, double clicked it. So that looks horrible. No problem. Just gonna grab this, and I'll start painting this out a little bit. Okay, a little couple bushes stuff here. Just gonna give it an edge. Now, I usually put a little more work into my edges, but this is gonna be buried. Plus, I will come back with another brush and just diversify a little bit. So that, take this one, a couple of these in, a couple spots of that. There we go. So you can start to see what's happening here. Cool. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab some unique brushes that I've made, which is a little bit of grasses and stuff. A couple in there, a little bit of grass there. Okay, there, and a little bit in between this rock. Move in there, dash there, and then we have a couple of these little plants. Oops, just a dash of those. Okay, that's nice and diverse. Cool, and now I want to grab my rocks. So I'm going to grab this brush down here and turn this one on so I can see where my rocks are. And we'll just paint around the rock. I'm not going to go right to the edge, otherwise I'll have little bits of green in there. Not that it matters too much because the rocks should be buried in the forest a little bit, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Cool. There we go. Let's clean up this edge a little bit. There, and then this one, how does this one work? This one's like this, and then comes up. Okay. Okay. There. Okay, that's that. Let's get this a little bump here and a little here. Not so even. And then let's fuzz this off a little bit with a bit of blurriness. This guy, this one. Just fix this up a little bit, blurry these a bit. Just turn this off so we don't. And then I'm going to really blur up this edge to make it look like I've finished painting. Cool. A bit here. So I'll probably put a little bit of a highlight on some of this edge. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure yet. Okay, and then a little in here. Okay. There, and we'll just do a bunch here. Okay. So, and then I think what I might do, let's group this, put this here, and add a new layer, make it an overlay, and then grab a paintbrush. And then I'm just going to grab this textury brush. We'll see if this works. This might not work. Actually, maybe I'll grab one of Aaron's brushes. He has some good foliage brushes that are good for highlight edges and stuff. I can't remember all that are his and which ones. I think this one's his for sure. So I'll take that and I'm going to grab just a yellowish color. Since the light is yellowish of the sky, we need a little bit more of this. There we go. Great. I'm just going to paint a little bit of highlights in here. What do we have? Let's take a look at that. Okay, yeah, it is doing something. I just want to get a dash to like, this will make the edge feel like it's an edge. Okay, and then a little bit here. There. Cool. Okay, that's fine. And then I might put just a little bit of a bluish tint there. Go here. Just get a bit of this edge lightened up just a touch. Cool. So that's fixed. So that's one piece. So now let's have the next piece. And that'll be this stuff here. This can just be like a nice little island like that. We'll meander into here like this and get some of that nice color. Like I like a lot of the stuff that's going on in this. I just really hate those highlights and how much I have to preserve of it to get those rocks. Like this is not strong right here. This is a long straight line with really bright, it's not great. I mean, it'd be fine, I guess, in a painting, but it really doesn't work for what we're doing. Okay, I don't need to have the second layer because I don't really have to trace it the same way. So I'm going to grab this and we can just maybe use this brush. 0, 0. Okay. Again, we'll rework the silhouette a little bit. This part's fine. This in. Okay, let's get another one. Great. Let's get a couple of, what are they called? These guys. Oops. Excuse me. Okay, and I just want to get some little plants and stuff in there. More unique, individual little things that help make it feel more special. Little pine stuff, and a little one of these. Okay. And then this little leafy guy. Cool. Great. All right. So that's painted in. So let's blur off some edges. It's really just, it's quite a process. Just a process. Here we go. Smush that away. In here, I think I want to get a little bit of texture on that edge piece, just a bit. So I'll come back on that after. Put a splash here and there. And this stuff. Okay, good. Okay. Looks good. Good. It's fine. Okay, cool. And then we'll just go, once again, group this. Put this here, put this here. Gotta be careful because we don't want to accidentally do an overlay on top of a blank spot. Because it'll make, when we flatten everything, it'll look terrible. I think I can probably just use my texture brush. My brush button not working. Okay, and we'll use just my yellowish color. It's fine. It's not all cool. There we go. A little bit of highlights here and there. And this is the cool area, so it's a bit bluer. Trying to be super light with it. Don't get too carried away. Okay, so now we've done that. What we should do is we see, just merge it and make sure. See, this is what happens if you accidentally go outside of the boundaries. Watch. See that? Don't want that. So go here. Just have to erase that off. And it's happening because of this layer here. There's something in this layer that's sitting in there. Still there a bit. Whoops. It's right there. Because when you flatten something, it loses all the overlay or the blend mode properties. So if you've done anything weird, if you have anything sitting over top of something, it'll look weird. All right, cool. That's good. So we can apply this. We can apply that. So we have two new pieces. bush rock. And this one, oh no, this one was bush rock. Bush rock, and this one is gonna be bush cool. Because this mostly our cools and our purples and stuff. Okay, great. And then what we can do is make this composition a little smaller by just overlapping them a little bit more, so we don't have to have such a huge comp. There we go. Let's tuck that in. Great. Okay. The only other thing I wanted to double check with, now that we're here, add another layer. I think I just haven't used that one yet. The one with my other good rock layer. Maybe I have. This one? No, not that one. I know I saw it earlier. Some nice rocks in it. But now I cannot see it anywhere. It's this one. Pretty sure I used this one. For some reason we're just not seeing all the pieces. That is bushes D. Okay, cool. Well, I will turn all these back on. I will not save this actually, because I don't want to mess with it. This one's been saved. Oh, this one has not been saved. So we'll call this Bowen Island Bush Rock. Cool. Okay, cool. Done. Dun, dun, dun. All right, now that that's fixed, should be able to bring it in. Drink some water. Okay. So you can start to see how this could take all day to do one scene. These are like this is a specifically a pretty complicated one, but we've only just scratched the surface really. Once okay, this one. Once this whole the structuring of it all is in place, then it really comes to like sweetening it up and adding the fog and atmospherics and all that kind of stuff, which really bring it to the next level. Okay, so there's our two rock pieces. Excuse me. No, I want those here because this is replacing these layers that aren't working. There it is in all its glory. Okay, so now I have a little more freedom with this layer. Looks better already. Cool. I really should have just done this before. I mean, I shouldn't, I kind of, I don't, like I said, I really don't usually treat things like a painting. And this one I treated like a painting and it's caused a few extra headaches that I'm not really, it's not really the normal way I work. Okay, that looks pretty good. Cool. Glad we did it. Just want to make sure they're spaced apart enough. There, cool. Now, I probably will be able to use another part of the layer again. So somewhere up here. So let's just duplicate it and see if we can pull some more out of it because I'm not really not using much of it um, because it's quite a bit hidden, but I may not be able to. It's pretty repetitive, so let's just get rid of that. That's fine. We got all we're going to get out of that layer. And let's pull in the cool one, which I think will be helpful because we'll put this at, so the other one ended up 370, so we'll put this at 250 for now, which I think, so there it is. This is going to be handy because we don't have a lot of cool layers we can work with. Scale this down, it's too big. So this goes from, well, it's pretty cool all the way through, which is great. So those trees are there. Okay, cool. Awesome. I'll tip it down a little bit, make it like a bit like a hill. now we can destroy this layer forever. Never look at it again. So long. You were a bad idea. So now we have these trees, which thankfully I separated off their background piece long ago. We can get rid of the mask on them. Is there a mask on that? There should be. M. Pressing M and nothing is happening. I'm sure there's a mask on that. There isn't. Okay, I must have deleted it already. Okay. Bring those trees back. Okay, what can we do? Let's put these back in here somewhere. See if they're usable. They may not be. There may just be too much. There's already a lot going on in this scene. Maybe up here would be the place to use them for sure, because that's where we're not using the big trees anymore. This is where all the big trees have thinned out by the time we're up here. I may end up having to cut some of the trees down, which is okay. I just want enough. So let's get behind these rocks. Okay, let's see how that feels. We gotta be nice and we gotta be low enough that we're not gonna see the edges of the tree. Now, they get pretty dark. Like these are pretty dark. Now this tree here, there's this light side on it, and there's a light side here. That was meant to be behind a halo of light. So if we want to use it, we kind of have to be here, where there's some possibility of light getting on both sides of it, which is okay. Maybe it'll work. Okay, I would say I think this one I can see through it. Oh no, I can't. That's good. Okay, so we're pretty good. All right. Now, there's that foliage foreground, which is fine. That's working. It's definitely like too cool and stuff in places, but that's okay. Um, that'll be adjusted and fixed. Like this is too green and weird, I think, but where is that tree even? What is this? It's just another layer. Okay, that's like a foreground one. Okay. All right, so next, I think we've got most of the layers in here. And now it's just the big trees and the fog and everything else. And the top foliage, which we haven't really dealt with. Well, we put a little bit in. I could, let's just take some here. Oops, what did I do even? Duplicate position. I could use it a little bit closer too and scale it way down to 50%. Flesh out the top a little, top foliage if we want to. Not sure if it's necessary. Like I said, I want to be careful not to suffocate the scene. But it's always like, it's good to have, just in case. Probably be better over here because it's a bit warm. I mean, I can change the color of it at any time. Okay. Might bring this a little closer and see what it looks like close. Okay, close, close, close. This will be probably out of focus once we put depth of field on. Work better as a really close layer. Okay, lots going on in this. It may be unnecessary. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about it. So I'm going to, I'll keep it, but I'll probably just turn it off for now. And I want to put another one here. I'm duplicating it again. I probably want to use another one over here somewhere as we get further up here. So it's not just all sky. I'm not sure though. It depends on like, cause I guess like when I come from, see what this shot, see what this old shot's doing here. Let's have a look at this one again. See how much sky is in that shot, like quite a bit of sky with like a distant mountain. I mean, I could pull this sky in, the sky that I made for this one. I could pull that in, no problem. Something to think about. I'm not gonna worry about it right now though. We'll limit the amount of foliage in the upper foliage, unless it might work down here, especially if it's really far back and really big, because it will create something for those trees to be backed against. Like I may end up flipping it over and using it as bushes, like far back bushes too. So if we scale this way up, and then I could duplicate it, position, bring it down, flip it over. Oh, let's just and these would be like this. I'm talking way back, maybe even further than that. This is something to create a silhouette for the land behind all the trees and stuff. Because this will all be fogged out, but we'll need something to be back there. I didn't really plan the painting to be, I didn't plan it with a ton of depth, so that can go there, back, way back there, which will be fine. We'll figure it out. That stuff I can continue to flesh out and add pretty easily if we need it. Okay, so for now, I'm going to turn off the foliage top. No, not that one. I want to turn off this one for now. Do I have another one on? No. Yes, I do. I have this one too. So let's just turn them both off for now. I just want to keep my ceiling clear for the moment, and then I'll fill it in as I go after the fact. I might bring another one of these guys up here. I'm going to touch closer just to give us a little bit of something. Maybe bring it a lot closer because there's really nothing in there. I'm scaling it way down. I'll bring it closer. I'm going to bring it close until we pop through one of the trees. Yeah, there we go. There's the trees because there's just nothing there. So there'll have to be something. I mean, I could always use some of these bush layers and stuff too, but okay, so now there's something there, which is good. I might want to rotate this way. It's a bit cool. Let's have a look here. I mean, all this stuff is cool because it's supposed to be a top layer of foliage, but I have enough, I think enough little warm spots in it. I also want to make sure that I'm not going to see too many like that. There's two little heads there. That's pretty identifiable, and I can see another one easily right there in the other one, other top foliage. So this one, I might not make this one so far back. Not sure. Not in love with it, the way it's moving. But we got to get those big trees back in so we can really see how things are actually feeling. And then we have to get the fog and stuff in. And then that will really help determine how much we need in the way far background. Because we may just not need much. Cool. Okay, so let's go play this back. I'm just gonna also save, and we will purge the memory. We're up to 18.5 gig now. Okay, and then Once that's done, we'll run through a quick RAM preview. Okay, see if this figures itself out. So it doesn't have the feeling that I'm looking for yet. This is a fairly thin forest at the moment. Once I get the big trees in there, I think it'll feel a lot better. I don't want to spend too much time developing the ground cover until I've put in the bigger trees. And then the trick after that will really be lighting and trying to make the shadows look good. One thing you can do for shadows is you can just paint on one of the layers using your brush, using the paint tool in After Effects, and that can bring you can use that to paint your shadows, like for tree shadows that would be cast across a bush and just be a little bit bumpy and stuff. Okay, we're almost there. I gotta stop soon. It's like 3:15. I need to get to bed. All right. Once this is done, I think once this render's done, I think I'll probably stop because I've got to then I need to look at the big trees, and the big trees are going to take me a little bit of time to get my head wrapped around them again. Feels okay. This area feels really flat. Like this one here, this whole area. So I definitely need some bushes in there. It feels super flat. And I think it's just because it's one piece. You can really see it. So I just need some bushes to break this up. Probably like 2 or 3 layers. We'll fix that. This area is nice. That works nicely. This one's a bit flat too, but it's coming. I'll make it full screen. Maybe that'll help. Make it more clear what's not working. The thing is, oops, once it's in on a movie theater screen, you can really see the problems. Well, I don't know if these are problems. It's just my taste. So this stuff, but everything behind. So you have the ground, and then you have a layer there, and then you have this. You can really start. You can really see it right now. So there's that big flat, flat, flat spot. So this stuff's working really nice right here, and then we get a little bit flat and chunky here, right there, and then we're flat and chunky right all in this spot. So there's probably a couple more hours of filling stuff out, and I probably won't stream that because that can be it's just really tedious and boring to watch. There's a rock that's super white there too that shouldn't be white. I mean, then I'll go through. What I will stream again though is like painting the light, fixing any light spots and stuff that should have shadows on them. And this is super low res too, so. But I think overall it's coming together. I think it's gonna look really good when it's done. It still looks pretty gross at the moment, but it'll really come together in the end. Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm gonna stop streaming. Thank you for anyone who's still there. Um, and I will stream again pretty quickly. Oh, Colin, hey, I did actually, I don't know if you saw, but I do rotate layers on the ground plane for sure. Um, so here, we'll just pop in and take a look really quick. So for the ground here, oh, slow. You can see I rotated this one, um, like that. And I do do it actually. If there's a few other layers that are rotated flat and down. When I'm in a forest scene, I don't do it as much, um, because I'm trying to create that feeling of bushy density, right? And when you take a layer, even though it's big and flat, and you rotate it this way, you can see like the parallax is you get a little bit of it, the parallax happening, but you don't get that sense of density, if that makes sense, because there's really not enough change in shape, if that makes sense. So even if you tip the layer down, it still feels very flat. It works really good, like I did for grounds and even grassy hills and stuff like that. You can totally get away with it. Like you have 2 or 3 layers of a grassy hill, and then you rotate this layer like that, and then one a little more up, and then one more a little bit more like that, and that'll work really nicely. For these bushes, though, for forests, I tend to just stay pretty flat and just really push, 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 and just stack as much as I can. Um, you can see the weak spots, like looking at this, you can see where there's big empty pockets that need to be filled in, where there's big gaps. Like this spot right here is a big gap, and you can see it when you watch it moving. You'll see that gap, and you'll note it'll feel really flat. And even so, here you can see we've got one layer here. Um, and that's pretty Spartan for me, for a forest. Like that's one layer that's trying to support making this land feel full. So I'm going to be fixing that for sure. It's just my style. I mean, it's not like there's no problem with stuff that doesn't have that kind of density. I don't have a problem with it. It's just more my personal taste at the moment when I make something. I love films with like a good flat basic background. But I also, my personal inclination is towards, I would say moving illustration or deep illustration. And so that's why I tend to end up using so many layers and trying to create a sense of depth and immersion and movement and space in a painterly fashion that's not 3D. So it just requires a lot of extra layers. And the more your camera moves, the more the flatness is revealed. So you need to really distract from it. But yeah, cool. Well, thanks for hanging out. Um, and I will be back online. And yeah, thanks for all the good questions and the feedback and stuff. I really appreciate it. So thank you. Sorry for the low energy. I'm definitely a little tired. Okay, see ya. Thank you.